All right, bills and manifests are going around. We do not have need for initial public, non-public session, so we'll move right to opening public comment. Would anyone like to speak? Would anyone who just arrived like to speak in opening public comment? Okay, would any board members like to take this time to talk? All right, we're done with that then.
Oh, no, Tim Reese, I was quick.
Be quick.
You gotta be quick. No, I just, otherwise I'm gonna cut you off.
Good.
I'm getting, I think a kick out of it is the wrong way to put it, but I am quite interested in the outcry regarding my letter to the editor on sports. So far, I think I've had 17 either phone calls or emails. And I believe I've had 4 people who disagree with what I said and 17 who agree with and have given me more information. And I'm thinking about how I'm going to use that coming up. I think that the issue is a lot of people are unhappy about how, a lot of parents are unhappy about how they or perceive their students are being treated regarding sports. And a lot of it is old, meaning more than a year old, which I don't think is quite fair. And it's not that I don't want the emails or the phone calls. I just would like to say, I wish some of the parents, and they're, to a person, have all said they're worried about repercussions. I wish the parents of some of these parents who really have some good points would email some of the others of you or our athletic director, et cetera. I just wanted to say that publicly. It's created not a monster, but an issue that I've been concerned about some time. And I think it's something that in the future we should look at, you know, the whole sports thing. I think I've made myself very clear, but some people don't think I have, that I think that public money in sports should be used across the board for all of the students who want to play sports, especially in K through 8. I understand the need to win and wanting the best players and all of that, and I appreciate that, I really do, but
1 minute. 1 moment.
I don't need a minute. So I've said what I said. I just would like the parents, some of these other parents, I wish some of them would go to you guys and let you hear what they have to say, to be honest with you. And I wanted to say that publicly.
I got it. Yeah, just want to congratulate the Co-Brown JV boys. They came in first place today for the state championships. So, and for cross country. So, a lot of them were beginning their cross country careers or here in with the Northwood cross country team. So, congratulations, and the girls took 3rd place.
Anyone else? Good, okay. Thank you. We're going to close public comment and move on to approval of the minutes.
Motion to approve minutes from October 6th, 2016.
Second.
So the one thing I was talking to her about, I believe the 3rd speaker was Ms. Glennon instead of Amy Hanavan. She got in touch with me and said, I read that I spoke in the minutes, and I was surprised since I wasn't there.
Oh, is
thought what your name
or
was.
no, I wasn't speaking at least.
Mike?
I did change Mr. Alford's.
The spelling, okay.
I was
good.
just gonna say.
Sorry about that.
So we fixed the spelling of
No
Mr.
worries.
Alford as well. Any other corrections to the minutes?
I do have a question about minutes, if I could. So, the law has been changed about minutes. Are you aware of that?
I think I saw that, yeah.
And I'm kind of curious, rather than wait till January 1st when the new law takes effect, are we going to discuss that as to how we're going to address the new law? Are we just going to wait?
But by reading, I mean, we were doing what the law said already.
The new law states that non-public minutes have to have the same substance as the public minutes, and certainly I don't think we,
Well, it has to have the same requirements of the same public minutes. We can look at it, but
okay, and my only point is I don't want to be surprised on January 1st for anybody to unilaterally just change the format of our public minutes to the format of our non-public minutes. So I would like to have a discussion about minutes way before January 1st, so that I know and can react to that as to what we're going to do regarding minutes.
yeah, when I was looking at it, I didn't see that we'd have to make any change at all to be in compliance with the
Well,
law.
our minutes are, the minutes in non-public have to reflect the same amount of information as our public minutes.
I don't think that's what it says.
Well, okay, so I think we need to look at that.
We can.
I'm more than willing to bring the law in if you would like. I just, my concern is not so much non-public as public minutes. I value minutes, and I don't want to see them change. So I'd like to look at
Yeah,
the
no,
law.
I agree.
Okay.
Yep, we'll put on an agenda for our next meeting.
Thank you.
Any other comments about the current minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No? I think that's all five. Okay. Up to you, business administrator's report.
Good evening. So there's still no revenue statement as of this point. They're still finalizing the tax rates. I did touch base with the town administrator as well as the DRA to see where we were in that process. The DRA was working on the town information, I believe, and then got back to me on all of our school information for all 3 schools. So they were supposed to be done today, as far as I know. So we're working on that to try to, hopefully, if we didn't get them today, to get them by the end of this week, so you guys will have a revenue statement by next month. For being on a default budget, you're looking pretty good right now. I don't really have any major concerns besides the whole Co-Brown. Your bottom line right now is $508,000, but the Co-Brown, I did put in there that I would work on a reconciliation to try to figure out why we're so over in that line. And I did an enrollment history from when we started working on the budget last year through the end of June. And then so from last year, school year, you had an additional 17 move in and 7 move out. So last year alone, during the budget season, like after the budget season, there were 7 additional students. But then there was a significant, from the
10
total
additional,
ending,
You said 17 moved in.
17
7
moved
moved
in,
out.
10 moved out.
Oh, 10 moved out, okay.
So for a total of 7. And then compared to the total June last year to the August enrollment, there are, so if you look at the financials, you're off by 16 students. And that's where the difference happened, was over the summer. So we're working on that to try to figure out if we can pin down which ones moved into district and everything like that. Not by name or anything, but just kind of like an enrollment thing.
So when they came in, maybe, or something like
Exactly,
that.
yeah, to see when we got those paperwork, so the new ones that didn't. But on the other hand, it's like the 8th grade students, mostly. That's where most of them came in. So they came in from another district to here. So, and then with that in mind, that's also going to affect next year's budget. So when we get to that point, I just wanted to let you guys know that that's exactly what happened. And then other than that, I didn't have anything else to say because, you know, we're only in the middle of October by the time these went out. So, I mean, there's nothing really else to know. Unless you guys have questions, I'm more than willing to answer them.
I have 3 when we get to it.
Sure. You go for it.
Oh,
You're talking about the monthly financial
No,
review?
I
Or the-
honestly, one about the monthly, I really don't care about, and Margie knows that. I'm not going to look at the monthlies really until after the first of the year. And that's nothing against Marjorie. I just don't think there's enough information to really pay attention. She's got to do them, that's her job, but I just don't pay attention until after the first of the year. And she knows that. So I'm curious about the Crow-Brown number. I attended the Budget Committee meeting, and they're saying that if you take whatever students we have times the cost of it, the number just is not adding up. Is that correct or not correct? Are you working on that?
Nope. If
Okay.
you take the amount that it's over by and
No,
divide,
if you take, as I understood the thing, if you take 244 students or whatever it is, times whatever was given to you in August, on the August billing, times the amount we pay to Co-Brown, those two numbers don't, and you multiply one times the other, the number doesn't add up. I didn't do it. Is that what you understood? Yes. So, I'm just kind of curious about that.
So you're saying that the 244 times the individual...
I'm not saying, I'm saying, well, I am saying that they said, I didn't do the math, I'm sorry, I just didn't have
244
time.
I'm just trying to
244
understand it.
times the 15,123 or whatever
Didn't
it
add,
is.
okay. We can check that out, that's easy
Okay,
enough.
and I'm not looking necessarily for an answer, I just,
Yep.
the Co-Brown thing doesn't bother me at all. I know that we have a ton of money in reserve to pay for that if we get in trouble at the end of the year, and I will be the first to vote for that. That's what it's there for, so I'm not concerned about it at all. So that's one. I would like you, if you could just take a minute, Marjorie, and go back over how the paperwork is going to work out on Fresh Picks. I was embarrassed, and they didn't ask me, but I couldn't even answer it if they had, how this is going to work out at the end of the year. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's, the whole financial thing is considerably different, you know, how you're going to report it. And my understanding from the previous time you brought this up is that we're going to get charged the $17,900 and whatever dollars it is over the course of the year, and at the end, that's going to be reconciled to the point where the most we can lose is $3,400 or whatever it is. Is that basically correct?
correct.
Okay, so, thank you.
You're welcome.
And the $994 a month we're paying to DeLange, is that Medicare, Medicaid?
Nope, that is the copiers that you have in
Okay,
the building.
thank you.
have 2 in the teacher's room and 1 in the main office.
That was all of my questions.
I'm glad I could answer most of them.
I have more, but I'll wait for my.
Oh, I figured I'd be getting an email from you.
I'll email it
I
to you,
like
but
the
I've
emails, that way I can just copy and paste it and
Exactly,
put your
and I'll
answers,
send it to you
so,
tomorrow.
thanks, Bree.
It's longer than last time, sorry.
Okay.
Last time, I think I only had 5. This time I have 10.
Questions about the monthly review? Would you like to propose the proposed budget?
Bob likes to take
Bob,
that
very
part
well.
over.
Well, just a couple of things on the budget that's in front of you. This is a first blush. Obviously, there are some things that need to be adjusted. The insurance rates, we just got the not-to-exceed numbers today, and they came in at 9.3%, so that needs to be adjusted. And there's obviously some other areas that need to be tightened up, but it's in pretty good shape right now. So just very quickly, I just want to do some highlights going through, on page 1, you've got your teacher salaries. You can see that it's a decrease of $132,000. The majority of that is one teaching position that is being reduced. And again, as I go through this, I'm going to just hit on the high points. So if you have any questions on each page, just let me know. I know that you've probably looked through it already, so.
So I have a question already,
Yep.
sorry. So just with our numbers, and I'm not sure if Tim will bring this up too, but with our numbers, I'm just questioning why we're only decreasing by one teacher instead of two, with our enrollment going down as it is and what we're looking at and spreading it out. and
Well,
everything
at this
like
point, we've looked at class sizes and grades, and we know that we can reduce one teacher. And certainly that's something that we're going to continue to look at and see where our enrollment goes and where our class sizes are. But that's what we've come up with so far.
So you're budgeting for actually removing a position,
Yes,
that. So
just one position?
correct.
if we were looking at putting the kindergarten into this budget, then you would want to put this position back in? Or would you look at the 36?
Well, that's going to be part of the discussion because kindergarten is not in here.
Right,
We've got costs on kindergarten. The curriculum director is not in here. And we've got costs on that. So when we get to the end of this, you're going to have to make some decisions as to how you want to go about that. But just for starting it off, those are not in here. So again, the first page is the rest of the benefits and.
So I have a question on the
Yeah.
first page. Okay. So I would like to know, and I'm not expecting an answer tonight, but I would like to know teacher substitute wages. Now, we dropped that considerably last year, and then we ended up with a default budget, so that meant that we could go back to that $40,000. So I am quite curious as to how much of the money that we spent in the 15-16 year was spent for teachers out sick versus teachers who were substitute who were brought in for teachers to be used in other positions, other means and ways. Do you understand my question? I would like to know what part of,
you mean like a day-to-day sick versus a long-term sub?
no,
No?
we've used substitute wages to augment office people. We've used substitute wages. That might not be in the last year, but it certainly was over some time. We use teachers, substitutes to allow teachers to do a whole lot of other things when they're not sick. I would like to know how much of the substitute wages, $38,559.50, how much of that was for sick, and how much of it was for other?
Sick or
So for-
workshops or conferences or something out of the
Yes,
building.
exactly.
Okay.
Just, I would like to know.
Okay. And I know what you're talking about too, because a few years ago, that was the case. Last year, I'm trying to think, I'm not sure it was, so I can check that. I'm
And
trying-
and if it's not the case, that's fine. I just know, and you know that I brought that up in teacher
Yep.
negotiations, and I said to them, one of the problems I have is we have to supply substitutes when we negotiate during the day. And that's a very small part of it. We're talking pennies, and I don't have a problem with that. But I'd just like to know, as you say, a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, it was an awful lot of money being spent. I'm surprised, and I have to phrase things, geez, I really hate having to phrase things politically. We went through 2 retirement programs that allowed a number of teachers to retire who were at least old enough to go on the retirement system. That was one of the things. And that brought in a lot of younger teachers. So I'm thinking, my personal thought process is that our substitute teacher wages should be lower considerably. Old farts like me just have more problems than young kids like most of you. So that's what I'm thinking about. So, and I
Some
would like
kids
to
like
know
us
if
have
that's,
young
if
kids
that's.
that go to school and get
and
sick.
bring it in.
Yeah, well,
But
anyway, so that's where I am. I mean, in the past, as you know, we used substitute wages for a whole lot of other things other than sick.
Yeah, I'll try to get you that number. I mean, when it comes through to us, it's identified as a sick day, so I'll see if I can identify that.
And if it is a sick day, I have no problem with that.
No, I'm saying when it comes through to us,
Okay.
it's identified as a sick day,
Yeah,
so
well, I don't think it should be, but that's my opinion.
All right.
I'll
Move
try to
on.
find out. Okay. Any questions on page 1?
Why is the dental insurance so much more?
Well, people have different plans sometimes too. When
That's a
people
really
come
big-
in
that's a
with
really
family
big difference,
plans
though.
versus non-family plans and stuff. I know that's one thing that happens.
Like a single family to a family plan is huge, so.
Marjorie will check that.
It's $1,000 between a family plan and the single, but I'll look into it. Yep.
On page 2, you've got your workman's comp, and then you go into your supplies. I mean, you can see the changes on that page. Any questions on anything there?
So are we caught up in supplies? Is that why those are dropping so much? Some of these things, like the math. We've spent a 10,000.
I believe that reflects the requests that we got from the staff.
Yeah.
That
And
right?
you will see in the math textbook line, the request for Go Math for K through 3 next year. So
Okay.
this line is
So it's
lower,
not
but that
shifting
line
over
is.
there. Okay.
higher. Yep.
All right, on page 3, again, you've got a reduction in general supplies there. Again, a reflection of what was requested and trying to tighten things up. Math textbooks that Jocelyn was just talking about, that increase of $26,000 there. Any questions on 3?
So after this, the math textbooks, all K through 8 will be on the same math program. Correct. Awesome.
Could we go back to 2 for a second? This is personally not an issue with me, but it is an issue with a number of people, and it came up at the budget hearing. We do not have a middle school, and under language, reading, arts, I think it is either foreign language, foreign language supplies, 1100 5610 006, materials to provide middle school Spanish students. For some reason, that just sets certain people off in this town. Could we take the middle school out? And somewhere it's in the budget and in the stuff given to the budget committee, and I
It's
don't
in
mean
my
to
list
steal
of-
your
Nope,
thunder.
it's in my list of
All right,
10.
I had noticed it earlier today when I was going through this. We don't have a middle school, and could we take that out, please? Thank you.
Cross that off your list of 10, Bree. We'll have 9 now.
Oh, it wasn't in the budget, it was in the enrollment report. They didn't like it there either.
Well, and they've asked for it not to be there. We don't have a middle school.
All right.
30 seconds.
All set on 3?
Sorry, still on 2.
Page 4, again, you're at the end of your new equipment, replace equipment in the different areas. And then down the bottom, we're moving into special education.
So we were talking about function codes. What is this all one function code from?
The function code would be 1100, regular
So
education.
from,
Okay.
from page 1 to, it
Yep.
ends on 4.
Okay. Thanks.
And then you're moving into 1200, special
Yeah.
education.
Yeah. So that's where it is.
Right.
Yeah, all right. Thank you.
So, and I'm assuming that the function code question is in regards to the $1. Are we or are we not going to put $1 in the lines that we have?
We've been told we don't have to legally.
So we're not?
I'd rather not.
There are some in here, because I think we were waiting to have that discussion with you at some point. So there are certain dollars where administration did put $1 in, and then there's even a note that says open line. So, but we just left them there because we didn't know how the board wanted to proceed with that.
Do you think there's 100 zeros?
100 ones? 100 ones or 100
Do you
zeros?
think there's 100 times where we might use $1?
In here,
Yeah.
I think there might be 20 at most.
Well, why wouldn't we? I just don't get it. Sorry.
So do these lines drop off after next year if we don't spend, like if we're doing the proposed budget for next year?
Correct.
These lines can go
Yep.
away at that point,
Yep.
some of them.
Which is good, but I mean, they can come back at certain
Sure.
points too,
Yep.
so. I mean, I think it's especially great to have that when you're going through your textbooks. Like, I know we're trying to phase out textbooks and go into more technology-based, but to me, it's a good marker of, okay, we bought science textbooks in year 1, year 2, you know, and you can kind of see them going
Yep.
across, so you know where you are.
Yeah, I was
in
mostly
your-
worried about, just talking about
Where you-
these 0 ones that
Yep.
are, you know, haven't been being used in the last couple of years.
Bless you.
Well, to that end too, when you're developing the budget, let's say that some of these things like replace equipment, health, science, social studies, if those are zeros for a number of years and they go away, if you're budgeting in a particular year and you need a piece of equipment that's going to be replacing in PE or science or anyplace else, then you would just put the line back in and identify it. That way that's the way it's clear.
So we're on page 4.
Yes.
So how many paraprofessionals do we have in the school now? It looked like there was 2 in regular education and 14 in special education. Is
Yep,
that-
we've added 1 in special ed. So you have.
14 is the added.
Correct.
It says
All right.
14 special education, which is an increase from 13.
Yep.
So
And you
is
have
that
3
all-
regular ed.
3 regular ed?
You have 2 academic tutors and 1 in kindergarten,
Okay, so 14.
and 2 Title I.
15, 16, 17 paras in the school now.
Well, hoping to have that. Currently, there's 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18.
And then there's also the neck tutors.
Yep,
So there's,
which is 8,
Yes.
so 27.
so there's 18 currently, and you're dropping 1 or you're adding 1?
We're adding 1.
Well,
There was a move-in.
I understand that, but does that, budgeting for 14 special education paraprofessionals, which is an increase from 13. So that's 14, 3 in regular ed, kindergarten, and 2 in 7th and 8th grade. And so that's only 17, not 18.
Plus the 2 Title I,
So 2 Title I
which are paid for from grant funds.
and 8 NEC. 14, 17, 18, 19, 27. Thank you.
Can you say that?
On page 5, continues your special education. You can see we went off a little bit of the history on the special ed substitute wages and brought that down $5,000. Health insurance adjustment, those are just the actual plans.
Could I ask? So I like history, I really do. And the history says that, I mean, in the 15, 16, it's 34,000. And you're gonna drop it 25 to 20?
Well, if you look at the 5-year average, it's 25,000. You know, we're thinking that we can save some dollars there and hopefully tighten that up a little bit. We've been all over the place. We've been as low as 16,000 and we've been as high as 39,000, so.
And I'm very much in favor of reducing that, I'm just very surprised, I mean, if it averages 25,000, why would we budget 20? The only thing I see in your favor is we go up, down, up, So next year should be down.
There you go.
Okay.
It has been all over the place.
I understand, but I mean, to the best of my knowledge, and that's, I don't have all the knowledge here, I think that the special ed substitute wages, I think if I was to make a guess that 95% of that is for actual people who were sick. And I'm not sure that it would be that high in teachers, but I'm just.
They must
I'm not
be
sure.
old too, right?
What? It must be old, yes. Like me and my wife. So I don't, I,
Would you like us to add that $5,000 back in?
I'm not ready to make that determination. I just wanted to ask you the question. I'm going to have a lot of recommendations at the next meeting, I'm sure.
All right. Anything else on 5? Page 6. You see you've got some special ed tuition that's gone up $42,000. And then really some other minor increases and decreases.
Somewhere in here, and I hope we haven't gone by it, because I wanted to ask, I didn't have time to mark this, I kind of watched it, looked at it, we have a $15,000 charge for sending a kid to another public school. Was that in special education?
Yes, you have one in elementary and one in high school right now. That was what I was given preliminary from the special ed department, and now I've been informed that one of them is actually an 8th grader, that will be a 9th grader next year, so I'm moving that 15 from the elementary to the high school.
So there'll be 2 in high school next year?
I totally understand all of the kids that we have sent out of district in the past, but it was always my experience anyway, maybe I'm wrong, that we send them to not public schools. This was specifically 15,000, sending them to another public school. So, I mean, we have had many occasions to send kids to non-public schools in special education, and we've actually had 1 or 2 to Cocheco Valley, Cocheco Arts and things
Arts,
like
technology.
that. So that's all, you know, and that was like under $5,000. But this was $15,000 for another public school, clearly stated another public school. So I just,
Yeah, I think
is
that's
that a
probably.
non-public discussion?
Yeah, that's probably a Mr. Rooning discussion at your next meeting in non-public.
Okay, I'll save that then, thank you.
And I'll write it down so I make sure that I let him know. Okay. On page 7, you're going into your co-curricular programs. Really not a lot of movement on that page.
So, one thing I'd love to see is a little more funding for field trips. So I know field trips they're not that expensive, and having gone on one this week with the kids, or last week with the kids, they really get a lot out of it. I know you did add some on the transportation, the bus, I did see that at the end, we haven't got there yet, but I was just wondering if you would consider putting in a little bit of money for field trips, for getting kids out there, you know, $300 a grade or something along those lines, just so that we can give that to the teachers and they can have the option to organize these things.
Is that what you would like, 300?
That's what
I mean, it's a good discussion.
Yeah.
I'm 100% for it. I think it's a great idea, because I know over the past 7 years that I've been here, that pretty much it's up to them to charge the
Right.
parents the money to go there and pay for the bus. And,
Right. And the bus funding will help, but if we can offset that cost too, just have a
Bus
line
fund-
for field trips, I think that'd be great.
Bus money will help a lot, but there's also the mini grants that the PTA gives to every class, and that's a couple $100 per, I mean, we set the rate at the beginning of the year, and I don't know, there's, you know, a couple $100 per
Right.
grade
I don't know,
level.
things may have changed, but I know like at least when my kids are in, there was no field trips for the first 3 or 4 years. Until 4th grade, I think they got 3 or 4 field trips that year. And it'd just be great if they could have more, I think. I think it'd be useful. But, so I don't know, I would say maybe talk to the teachers and find out what would be reasonable. But
So does the board want us to put a marker in there?
I think it's a discussion to have, maybe. I don't know,
yeah, maybe just put something in there for us to come back
it's a
to
discussion to
loop
have.
around back to. You know.
Do you have a number?
No. I would say
500 times 8, $4,000?
be a starting point, sure.
For discussion?
Yep.
Okay.
Speaking of that, did you put the $5,000 in for curricular?
Yes,
I was looking for that too.
yes, we're not there yet.
All right.
I remember, it's in here.
I remember seeing that.
I don't want to get beat up.
I know we put it in here.
Okay. I'm hoping you're gonna refresh my memory when we get there.
I hope I remember it when I get there. On page 8,
That's what that is.
really the biggest decrease there is your athletic supplies, and I assume that's because we had some purchases toward the end of last year that assisted with that. And on the bottom of page 8, you've got some savings there from changes of positions in the guidance staff. Page 9, you're finishing off your guidance. Supplies, books, everything, benefits. And then moving into your nursing category, which starts on the bottom of page 9. Questions on page 9? Page 10, at the top, finishing off the nurses area of the budget.
Does she do her budget, or do you?
I don't do her budget.
I think she should do the whole budget.
She has one office.
Then down the bottom of 10, start your speech services. On page 11,
Was the contracted services, did I miss that?
where are you?
In the middle of page 10?
TS,
Oh,
ESL.
ESL,
So-
oh, sorry, speech. I was thinking that was speech, but that's English as a second language.
right,
Ah,
right.
So I'm assuming that was just something that we found was like a big, huge need, and that's why we're,
It's a need, so it was added. On page 11, you'll see curriculum development salaries, $5,000. That's what we just,
looking for.
I know we put it in here someplace. So that was in there. Your mentors are also identified on that page. 11.
and just out of, can we go back to 10 for a second? Just out of curiosity, these contracted services, sorry for the ESL, if we were to get a default budget, we would not have that $10,500 in there.
No,
No, that would go
that
in the
would go in your
default.
default budget.
It would?
It's
Okay.
it's
Any
a,
special ed
Because
contracted.
it's a
yeah.
contract, okay, because I guess it's weird just because it's contracted, it's not under the special ed. So I should have brought my markers with me. Okay, thank you.
yeah, that would go in the
Okay.
default.
Anything special ed is kind of like a requirement that we
And I
can't.
think that's where it got me, is because it's not under special ed. Okay. Thank you.
Page 11, on improvement of instruction, as well as moving down, you'll see the curriculum director, we put that in as the kind of marker. You've got curriculum improvement for $20,000 added for various consultants and other things needed for the area of most specifically for language arts and reading and literacy. So again, as we move through the budget, whenever you're ready to have a discussion on the curriculum director, whether that's going to go in your budget or whether that's going to be a separate warrant article, that's something you need to decide. Page 12, instructional staff training. You've got your course tuition for teachers and support staff, workshops, staff development for support staff and teachers as well.
$17,000 and they haven't used that much in
That's
the
part of your,
last 2 years.
that's part of your CBA.
Isn't.
Are the definitions of a line from the state, we have to use them, or are they changeable?
You mean moving money between lines?
No, I understand that totally. So, I'm just going back to 11. Curriculum development salaries. I'm curious if that could be called curriculum development stipends, or do we just have to use curriculum development salaries?
Nope, I can change that to stipends.
Well, the board has to make a decision, not me.
I know.
I'm just kind of curious.
I'd rather say stipends than salary.
I would too.
That's not a problem. That's what you wanted identified as.
Thank you.
Bottom of 12, you've got your media, librarian, library, benefits, salary there. You can see there's not a whole lot of changes in those lines. Page 13 continues your library. Fairly consistently the same. Bottom of the page, moving into your technology department. And on page 14 is your technology budget. You can see a number of things from internet services to computer software, computer supplies, replace equipment. You can see that there were some changes there, adding for replacement of equipment and reducing in certain areas like computer supplies.
I have a question on this one. I mean, I have to say, I didn't read the whole technology, because, whatever that thing was he gave us there, but 120 laptop replacements, do we really need to replace 120 of them in one budget year? I mean, that's just a lot of money. I mean,
Jocelyn?
I talked with Steve, that was sort of maximum, he could drop that to 90.
yeah, I just think, I mean, I just think that's a lot to, especially when we just spent a lot of money on computers.
We have more computers than students. More student use computers than students. 439 or 69, or 379 students.
Is that something you want us to do, is drop that to 90 and get a figure and?
I'd drop it to 80, honestly. We just bought how many new laptops?
72 or something like that.
Honestly,
$31,000.
what I'd rather see is something like a percentage, and maybe Steve has done this, where we're replacing, a quarter of their ones every year, so that we have a 4-year cycle, or fifth of them, or so, whatever it is, so whatever the
This
number comes
is-
out to be, it's.
Right, this is
I
the
am not
replacement cycle described in the
personally
tech plan.
qualified to say what we need.
About 120.
We need Mr. Roberts to come in and defend that, 120. I mean, he's the one that told us, we have 400 and some student-ready, I will never forget that, student-ready or student-use computers for 379 students. And now we want another 120. How can we support that? How does he support that? So I would like to have a clear understanding of that. I was astounded to see that we need more computers, knowing that we have more computers than students.
So these ones are intended for 7th and 8th grade for next year. Those are the ones they'll be replacing.
I apologize in front. I am computer stupid. I'll say that up front. I run a computer, but
Both grades.
just the basics to get my emails and stuff. But there's an awful lot of me out there who don't understand why we would need 439 or 69 or whatever it is computers for 379 students and then add another 120. That doesn't make sense.
Well, we're not adding 120, we're replacing 120.
Yeah.
Well, replacing 120, so
And then that goes back to, like we were talking about before, with Steve coming up with a technology plan, a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, of like, what, so we are not surprised by all these new replacement costs. We know that every 3 years, we need to replace 120 laptops because they're out of date, or they're obsolete, or they break. I mean, you got kids, teenagers, not even teenagers, you know,
most
using
of which
these.
are insured, and I agree with you, but if we have easy for numbers, 380, half of that is 19, half of that is, whatever it is, 100 computers, let's say, for easy numbers. So that would make some sort of a sense. I guarantee you.
A quarter every, a quarter.
Yeah, if it's, and he said I think he said our computers last more than 4 years. I think he said 5. But anyway, pick a number, and I could understand replacing that amount, so we're down to 90. In addition to that, I absolutely guarantee you can look at the numbers if you want, just the same as I can. We're gonna drop another 15 students next year. And so that brings us down to 375 students. And you have to look at that. And then we have one more big class, as I recall, and then it's gonna start leveling out. And then hopefully more people will move into town and we'll build it back up. But meanwhile,
So can
I
we,
think we need to,
yeah,
I
have
think we
Steve
need
come
to,
in?
Why-
I
why
just
don't-
wanted to point out that I thought that 120 was like,
Maybe going on a
Huge.
3-year plan rather than a 4-year.
yeah, I mean, I just thought it was a lot to be.
Why don't we
bringing
have
into this.
Jocelyn revisit this page with Steve, and whatever it comes out, whether it stays the same or whether it changes, then we'll come back and justify the numbers.
And can you also ask him for smart board upgrades for classrooms? I can't understand that, but I just want to know why, what needs to be upgraded. Is it the system, or is it software, or is it, what exactly is that?
again, I mean, what is the average lifetime of a smart board? I just don't know.
Well, I mean, 6 years does seem like a long time in a
For a
school.
smart board, I don't.
Well, if
really?
you think about you think of the number of kids that are going up and pushing on that and everything like that, I mean, to me,
That's
6
fine,
years
Barbie, I
seems
won't
like.
argue with you, but what does the company say? What is their smart boards, what is the average smart board lifetime out there? It's gotta be available, that number's gotta be out there. And if it's 6 years, then I'll shut up.
I'll bet it's less. But
Yeah.
I do not want big up and downs. In other words, I promote a CPI. But, I mean, some of these numbers, I don't know if that's right or wrong. I don't know if 6 years is right. I don't know if 4 years on a computer is right. I don't know. My computer's over in 4 years and it's still going, but I don't use it much.
We have a 10-year-old computer.
I want to be reasonable to the school and I want to be equally reasonable to the taxpayer.
I mean, again, the internet service, I know that there was something in
it's in the packet he's talking
this
about.
packet,
Yeah.
and I didn't know, it seemed like he might have an update. Is
Yep,
that
I do
coming?
have one.
Okay, so I didn't know if that would change that 18.78% in the budget either.
A little bit,
Um,
yes.
Okay.
Okay, we'll get additional information for that entire page.
Before we leave that page, it's kind of an odd one, but dues and fees, how is that going from $350 to $3,000? What is that all about?
The notes on the next page.
Well, and I was just wondering for the technology training for the staff, why that shouldn't be under like staff training instead of dues and fees, unless that's just for him.
I think it's
20.
fees for technology training. Maybe.
Like what
Oh,
fees?
okay, that's not how, okay.
Can we
Like if
just-
he's
That's a
doing
big
the training, I assume, what is
That's
that
a lot of-
amount, $2,400, what is that for?
That's a big that's a big
Or
fee.
maybe he's
No, I
bringing
don't
someone in.
think,
to do
he's
it.
not doing that training, I wouldn't think.
That's just a really big fee or.
And why
dues.
can't he? I mean,
Yeah,
what-
why can't he
I
do
mean,
the
that's-
training?
Might
That's
not.
something we should be
I think
promoting,
he's
is someone
receiving
should
the
go to the
training.
training and
He's
then come back
receiving,
and
this says
train
tra-
our
training
people.
for staff, this is
He is a
someone
staff.
training him, not him training the teachers.
I think it's training for him to train the teachers.
We'll find out.
There you go, we'll bring you back details on that.
That's just a big.
Dave isn't here, cut the school board salaries in half.
I'm all for that.
All right, there you go.
I wouldn't complain.
Pennies.
Yeah, you'll see that in 15, the school board services, really not a lot of movement either way.
Attorney and negotiator, and I hate to run that up, but aren't we running a little ahead of the game this year?
Yep.
It's on my list.
We
So I think at some point we need to look at that.
we put it up a little bit. You know, we certainly can keep an eye on that as we go and see if we're gonna go over this year.
Are we, I'm just trying to think, do we have any pending? Or are pending things all kind of cleared up?
May depend on whether the contracts. too.
I think we have at least one pending.
We've always got some little things pending. We haven't got anything major outstanding issues right now.
I can't think of any. I don't think there'll be any issue with the teacher contract. I don't know about the para, but. All right,
So we-
I just, because I remember reading that we're running well ahead on the legal things.
We've increased it $2,000 for the next budget, so we'll keep an eye on it, and if we need to put some more in there, then we'll put some more in there. Bottom of 15, your SAU number hasn't been set yet, so we just carried that number straight over, and we'll do that as soon as it's set. Page 16 is your,
Well, that should go down, shouldn't it?
what's that?
That should go down, right?
Oh, yeah, substantially.
Well, I mean, you're gonna charge Nottingham and give us a break.
Well, we'll
They're the
see.
ones that got the addition.
They said the same thing, charge Northwood and give
No,
them a
they
break.
know, I talked to Nottingham and they know that they're gonna get slammed.
16, Office of the Principal. Again, a few adjustments in there, but
So I just had a question, and I actually put it in here, and it is probably more for supplies and stuff like that versus the contracted services and the copier supply lease and stuff like that. But looking, it triggered my brain here, but shouldn't we be going down with the math, Go Math and the computers and how much they're using or should be using the computers more? Shouldn't we be going down on the amount of copies that we're making and things like that? Because they should be doing more with this technology that we're giving them. Instead of going, I mean, I understand if we have to, you know, do all of this, but I feel like we're bringing all of this technology in and it's, you know, but yet we're still unfortunately killing all of these trees and making all of these copies and,
Bringing technologies doesn't mean you're going paperless.
but you can go less. I mean,
You could, but
Yeah, I'm looking, like, just like you said, looking at the printing costs, we went from 1,400 to 2,000. Why are we going up $1,000? Like, that seems like an awfully big,
14,000 to 2,000 is only 600.
well, there you go, even more. So we should be at 2,500 if we're going up just a few $100s, not 3,000.
The note for that is on the next page.
Keep missing that, They're separated.
So that's sort of paying Staples or other companies to produce nice documents for us. So that would include things like certificates, awards.
but that's not your day-to-day printing.
Right, yeah.
And going back to what Barbie said, so the copiers that the teachers use, that's actually under regular ed.
Right, and this
So, and that
just,
one did go down by, we did decrease that one by $500. But the one in the main office, like, that's pretty much for them to do their day-to-day business for, they help us when it comes time to prepare the budget committee packets. It's like we tag team on that kind of job with it. So certain stuff like that with the copiers. And I know that, last year, while we were going through the budget season after it, they got a new copier, which was more money, I believe, but it's faster, it's more efficient. It has a lot more options on it that they can do, as opposed to wasting more time.
and again, it should have been under printing that I wrote my little note, but that just,
Oh,
it just
sorry.
happened to, trigger my memory or trigger my mind at that point in time that,
But
I
that's
mean,
more
as
than
they get
double.
older, they do bring less paper home. I mean, my 7th and 8th grader brings nothing home.
That's asking for more than double, though, in that line in 3 years.
I can say I did add that money to that line, knowing that we are implementing positive behavior interventions and supports, which is a reinforcement based system, and we don't currently have a systematic reinforcement in place. But the universal team this year may very well implement that, and so this would allow for the printing line to pay for whatever those reinforcement tokens, cards, whatever they may be, are.
And where are you this year? On it, I'm trying to find it. Are we overspending?
For the printing line, Tim,
Yeah.
it's on page 6 of 9 of the financials.
6 of 9 of the financials, Office of the Principal.
I'm having a tough time following it across. So the budget was 2,500, they've spent 130, and they've encumbered 1,200. So they have a balance of 1,100.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Are you ready for page 17? Ends your Office of the Principal, moves into Maintenance and Operations. And again, down the bottom of that page, you'll see the crossing guard wages. We put that in this budget. If you remember, it was not in the default budget, so we've included that piece in this budget.
So what's that, 2 hours a day for?
2 hours a day.
days or whatever it is?
2 hours a
15
day.
15
for
bucks an
180
hour.
days. $15.
I guess it's whatever it is, so.
Yep.
150 a week.
Page 18, moving into your custodial services, building maintenance. And again, you see health insurance throughout this budget. Ignore the note. That hasn't, the note was left from last year's note. That'll be updated now that we know the correct figure to put in there, so we just left the note in there, so obviously it's an old note.
So is that gonna go up?
Yes.
All of them are gonna go up because the packet went out last week and we didn't get the figures until today.
And the figure is what?
9.3.
9.3,
And the numbers in here are based on
what the current rate is.
the current rate, not what we were given in, it was like 12.4 that we started the budget out last year, right?
Yep. But it's
Down
what they
forward.
currently are.
So that's a lot of money.
It'll be quite a bit.
Well, and if you'll see in the New Hampshire retirement notes, those rates went up as well, significantly, especially for the teachers. So there's like, I tried to document everything where it was.
Don't we pay like $1 million for insurance? 5% of $1 million? 50 grand? Okay.
Questions on 18?
Yeah, so on building maintenance, we're putting in the lockers. I can see that's increasing by 12,000.
Water bottle, good.
Your insurance premium for building and contents. 5 years worth there, it's never been as high as 32.5. Is there a reason that's gone up?
We've always kind of just added like 5% on what the current was. So I actually brought it down by $500 because this year that we're in, it was 28,196. So 5% would be 30. I could bring it down if the board wishes to.
We could bring it 32. I'm not sure I'd want to go any lower than that.
When do we find out before? Do we get like a do not exceed number for this? No?
No. No,
We don't find out until.
because it basically depends on your claims this year.
Should we bring that to 32?
Bring it to 32.
Take $500 off that.
5%. Sounds good.
Have we had any claims this year?
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't think so.
The previous year we did with the
Oil spill.
oil spill.
Yeah. On page 19, you see your fuel oil. We're in the process of trying to see if we can get bids on locking that in, so that, is that gone out yet, or is it's going to go out?
I don't know. I know she was working on it.
Check that with Linda. But we'll do like we did in the past, see if there's a possibility that we can get a lock-in number, so you know what you're budgeting. We've been fairly successful with that so far. Then again, down the rest of that page is grounds maintenance as you move down through.
What's a Minuteman scrubber, one of those
I was gonna ask.
things you
but
run around with
Scrubbing the
handles and
floor?
everything?
I figured it was scrubbing the floor. Yes. Yeah, a floor scrubber, yeah. Was that like big round one that they scrub it, okay. Man, trash went up.
Town's
Gosh,
dealing
always
with that
come up.
too.
Page 20 moves into your transportation.
So I got a question. I'm back on page 19. Grounds maintenance, why is it so low? 14, 15, we're at, why was it so high in 14 and 15? Well, 14 through 16, and then we went to 46.
Because we
I-
moved money up to ground
Ye-
maintenance wages. We moved
Okay,
it.
so just move the money?
Yes.
Okay.
Right, I believe we did some end-of-year projects, and when we did the end-of-year projects, we had to reflect that in the appropriate line. That's why you've got some things there.
Gotcha.
Questions on transportation on page 20?
The, no, question on elevator maintenance. $2,600 for, what do we have, 2 elevators?
Three.
3? It just seems like an awful lot of money. Have we looked to see if we could find somebody that would do that for somewhat less? I mean, have we ever looked at it? That's,
I have no idea.
what are they, all 3 move 1 floor, 1 6 feet or something like that? I just wonder if we've ever looked at it.
Well, I
Or
know-
we just continue to go through with the same guy that we've used forever.
Yeah, we go through Stanley, I think, because I think, one, they're one of the ones with always like the best reputation, Stanley Elevator, so, but I can have Tom look around and see if there's anybody else that does it. I know there's certain things, I know they have to be inspected every year, there's certain things they have to do.
I like to inspect them, but I mean,
Certainly. Not something you want
They have to be.
to, something you want to
3
chintz out on.
elevators, $2,600, that's a
In
lot.
elevators, those are kind of important.
Yeah.
The operating rate.
All right, and then
If the
on,
kindergarten went in, just to clarify, that bus, one of those buses would go away, is that right?
I have that in my analysis. I called Deb today.
Oh, thanks. Yep.
So refresh my memory, is this the second, will this be the third year of the 3-year contract, or is this?
We
will
are,
be the second
we
year?
are in the second year, so next year would be the
Third
third.
year, okay.
So the budget we're working on would be the final.
Gotcha, thanks.
on page 21, you've got your bond payment that's going away of $290,000, so that's identified. And then into food service.
And I think one of the things we'll have to have a discussion at some point on is the food service, because I don't know how much to budget for that right now, because we only have a 1-year contract
Okay.
with them.
And that's what, that was my big question.
Right, so I'm just trying to estimate right now with that one.
What are you talking about? Food service?
Yeah.
I thought we had a 3-year.
It's a 1-year contract.
We extended
Contract.
3 years, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the amount in it was only 1 year. I read it to make sure.
You got nervous when you saw that? When
I
we
did.
read
I was
it?
like, "Is this?" It says right here. Is this from a contract? I'm like,
Yeah,
"What, that
no, we don't
amount?"
have a
I was
contract,
like,
so-
"Holy cow!" Because that was like a huge.
And because we've never
increase.
done it before, I don't have a history to show of how much it typically goes up.
So they must be ready to do something because they must deal with this
During our,
budget process. So have we reached out to them to say? I mean, I know it's still early, but what is their
I
for
haven't,
next year?
I haven't, because you guys are 3 months into your school year with a new system. So I kind of wanted to bring it back to you guys and say, are you happy with the system? Are your kids happy with the system? Do you want to keep this? Or do you want to go back to it's one of those things where
Right.
I don't know how you want to proceed, so we kind of have to have that discussion because.
Into a new system.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It sounds like
And-
most people are pretty happy with it.
Yeah, my
At
kids
least
are
the
actually
students
eating
and
hot
parents
lunch.
are very happy with
Not
it.
every day, but.
Because you'll see there are still some costs in there that I did have to add in, like we still have that free and reduced that we have to account for, so that's why there's still salaries with there with the FICA. We still have to pay for propane. There's still equipment repairs that will need to be done down there that I know we're currently doing.
Well, and that was the other question. The other thing that I had circled in here was $6,000. Is that I can't remember what we had for do not exceed when we came back with that for this year for that line.
I think that's what it was.
Was it
We
six?
had, we had a
For some reason,
discussion
I
about
had 4
it.
was in my head, but I didn't. go
And
back
as
to
we
look.
go through the budget process, we can go back in and see what our actuals are in that line too, to see, where we're at with that.
Yeah, because that number was, I was,
Well, I did the same thing because I looked at the totals and I was like,
I
wow.
was like, that's up 29%. That's huge.
Yes.
So it would be nice to at least, well, I'm assuming that.
Well, it's up 29%, but you take into account the transfer that we're not doing as well, right? We've got
And I- and
$25,000.
That's a total, that's the total, though. I mean, that amount
I
is
see
the
what you're saying.
total, yeah, it is still up 29%.
Gotcha.
And
I thought they were different lines, I didn't realize they were
No,
combined,
yeah.
yeah.
so I would like to have them go to Fresh Picks and, find out what their, money is for next year, if everybody's okay with that. If-
We can
if
certainly
nobody
ask the
has-
questions, that's fine.
Yeah, if nobody has heard negative. Jocelyn, have you had difficulties or anything dealing with them or? No.
So if I do call them, I guess my next question would be, your next contract, what are you looking to see? Like another 1-year contract, a 3-year contract? Because I'm just thinking while they're pulling the figures together for 1 year, they can probably do the same, at the same time, so.
Have we had any feedback from them at all?
Not really. I just hear building stuff. I know we're getting the 3-bay sink installed in November. We're under the deadline with the town to get that done, with the town inspector.
Are the teachers eating this? Eating the food?
Jocelyn?
Some do, yep.
What's the word from the teachers?
Is the food any good? Has anybody eaten any?
Anyone?
Yeah? No? Yeah? I haven't been in for lunch yet, so.
Sharon, was that a, no, I don't eat there, or no, it's not good? No, I'm just kidding.
Mixed reviews.
Occasionally I eat there.
The kale was really popular today, I know that.
The what was?
The kale.
Yeah, I know that.
Really?
Oh, my head, yes.
91% liked the
Some
kale.
kids went up for thirds. At one point I said, they're gonna recognize your face again. You know, when they kept on going.
For kale?
They do little samples of kale salad.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I know, like chicken.
He's like, two thumbs up.
Fresh pigs. For kale, wow. I thought you were kidding.
I'm serious.
So Barbie, that 29% does not take into account the transfer that we're not doing.
Oh, it doesn't?
That is a separate line, so.
Oh, I thought it was like the whole food service went down.
So that
to
would-
here.
No, because this is actually your
It's
general
a
budget.
separate function.
Okay,
So it should be, it's, less than half that, but, so
but still. it's-
15% or something like
Yeah.
that.
So where do we end that conversation? We're gonna check with them?
We'll check with Fresh Picks and see how it's going and see if they can start running some numbers.
I mean, I would much prefer a 2 or a 3 year, just so we know. I'm
Yeah, it makes
I'm
it
still
better for-
befuddled how I thought we had a 3 year and we have a 1 year.
It's an extension,
can
it's
extend it
in there
3
that we
years.
can extend it, but it's a 1-year contract, it says it right at the beginning.
Is there any limits to how much they can raise it?
I don't think that was,
I don't believe so.
I don't believe that was in there.
Do you have that online, on computer? Do you have the, I'd like the contract, please. If you haven't, I'd like to have a copy of the contract.
You should have it in your email, he emailed it to us. That's where I'm getting it from.
You mean from before?
I was
You want
gonna
me to find
say,
that?
he changed his email address, so
Oh,
it might be in
that's
the old
right.
one.
We'll send it to you.
Thanks.
I can't remember where I found it now.
So on page 22, you've got the end of the food service, and then you can see that the elementary portion of the budget is down about $35,000. Because out of that down $325,000, 290 of that is the bond payment, so your K-8 budget is down about $35,000.
How come you always look at the bright side of things? So our
Point out the
bond thing
facts,
was
Tim, just point out the
296 with interest, so really it's only 29,000, not 35,000.
Really, it's 325.
But nice try.
On page 23, I'll go in the other direction then, Tim. On page 23, we've got the high school tuition, and you'll see that that's up $285,000. And then halfway down the page, special ed, Co-Brown up $36,000. Again, from October 1 of 15 to October 1 of 16, we've gone high school from 229 to 244. So, I mean, it's an increase in enrollment, so that reflects the current enrollment.
There goes the bond savings.
There goes the bond savings. But the K-8 is down $29,000.
There's that bright side.
There you go. And that about sums up your budget. You can see at the end, as it stands right now, and again, we need to put insurance in here, you need to have some discussions on kindergarten curriculum director, and we've got to tighten up some numbers. Right now, the budget is, the total budget is down $33,000, so obviously that's going to change
So you said you got the do not exceed numbers today?
today.
And they were
Yep.
9 point something?
9.3.
Each. 229 to 244. Where would we go about finding kids that are going to a school illegally? Because I know there are some.
We get those reports all the time, and we look into all of those.
Okay, and that's-
Occasionally, We find them, we have people tell us the concerns, the bus company identifies them once in a while. Sometimes we'll get a call from Co-Brown letting us know. You know, obviously, we don't go student by student, but anytime anybody has a concern, and we do find them that, you know, people might be living in a different community and dropping their child off, or with a grandparent or a friend or whatever. As soon as we find that, we do our best to give it due diligence, and if it is indeed somebody that doesn't live in town, then we take it off the bill and we don't pay that. But we need to obviously know about it before. We try to, at the beginning of the year, go down the list and make sure that everybody's got an address, and it's a Northwood address, and but if there's any concerns with anybody, by all means, you know, we've constantly tracked down residency issues.
And what classifies residency for a student?
Well, it should be with a parent or guardian, and where they lay their head for the majority of the time.
So like living in Rochester and staying with uncle in
Can't stay
Northwood.
with uncle, needs a parent or guardian. I mean, if it's a, we do have many situations where it's not a parent, but it is an official guardian. You know, there are guardian papers that are done, we have foster kids, we have all kinds of different situations. But like I said, we try to track those down, and whether it's a, you know, sometimes it's a divorce decree, you know, we need the court papers to decide where the child is supposed to be going to school, so we try to track down everyone that we know about.
How many alt ed students do we have now?
Tim, I'm not sure. I can get you the
It
number.
was in our last budget packet, I believe.
It's just, I'd really like to know on the monthly enrollment report.
Yeah,
Each
that was
one.
a request from the budget
Okay.
committee.
I mean, and they'd like to know too, but I would like to know. I just never understood the up and down of the figures last year. So I have made it kind of a mental note on a monthly basis to ask, how many alt ed students do we have?
Scott has been putting it on his report lately. I mean, it's not with this, but it's in the report this week, but last week it was on there. I mean, last meeting.
Could we add a line in the,
Yeah, let me see if we can do that.
Monthly
Obviously, it's
enrollment,
gonna be
that should be part of
fluid,
it.
because we got some kids that stay a short period of time, and some people that are in there a long period of time, but, let me see if we can put it on the enrollment report.
And I guess I'll bring it up, because I'm surprised Tim hasn't brought it up yet. The 4 homeschool students that are budgeted
Yeah, I
for.
just-
Yeah,
Have we, have we,
Reached out to them?
yeah, reached out to see if they do have plans to go?
we haven't yet, but we will.
Okay.
I mean, last
what, we
year,
have 3 last year and not one of them went to Co-Brown.
well, I mean, again, that's a moving target. We
Right.
budgeted for some homeschool. Usually we budget for or I've budgeted for the homeschool students in 8th grade going to 9th grade, because normally that's when we see that there's a possibility. After that, if they're homeschooled in 10th or 11th grade, most of the time, you know, you're pretty safe not to budget for that, but
I just know that was a big, huge bone of contention with the budget
And we
committee
have
last
we
year.
have a moving target fund, which we're probably gonna have to add to this year, or asked to add to.
If we have
But we do
money
have
left
a
over.
moving target fund.
Supposed to be on that.
well, we try to take our best guess, and, you know, we put some in there last year that we took a little bit of heat for, but we're up 16 students, so.
Absolutely. And I understand that, and I was just, I was surprised Tim didn't bring it up.
So at this point, with this budget, is there any, I mean, you're gonna get a couple more cracks at it anyway, and we're gonna get the insurance number in. Are there any suggestions from the board, any number you wanna hit, any percentage you wanna hit? What do you wanna do with the curriculum director and do you wanna tell them
Pass that out?
Yeah, why don't we pass that out? That way you'll know the figures for the curriculum director and the full-day kindergarten.
I just emailed Tim the.
Oh, okay.
Tim, I just emailed you the contract from Fresh Picks. It's actually we have the option of a 4 one-year extensions. I read that part of it, but there's,
I can check that off my list.
Help you out.
So for a full-day kindergarten, I cost out what it would be for a full-time teacher as well as a full-time aide, both with family plans. And I did, like we discussed earlier, I did call Deb today in regards to the contract, because I do remember when we've done this in the past, I was told that she did not charge us for a midday run, and that was something that she did. So I called her today just to verify that. And she said she actually does charge us for a midday run now, but previously she didn't, I think, before this contract. I didn't go back to review the previous contract, so right there would be a savings of $43,000. I would like to discuss with Jocelyn at some point in regards to the additional furniture, equipment, materials, and supplies that will be needed for the $10,950, because that was something that Wendy had prepared last year. So the total cost for the full-day kindergarten that I've projected right now with that savings would be $67,789, which is a lot less than what we projected last year because of that midday bus run.
Right.
So,
So what happens to the current half-day kindergarten if we do this?
Becomes full?
I mean, but then the salary for the halftime,
She's already full-time.
that-
She has a
that-
morning and an
because
afternoon
she's
class.
morning and afternoon.
so that would still stay?
Right, that's why you need one more position. If you
Okay, and then the aide, the same thing?
And
So we'd still be keeping half-day kindergarten and then adding this in additionally, so people.
No.
nope, that you'd have two full-day
there's
kindergarten
33
programs.
kids in kindergarten.
Instead of having a morning half-day and an afternoon half-day, you would have 2 full days,
With 15 kids apiece.
whatever the numbers are.
Pretty
Yes.
small class.
Not for kindergarten.
Yeah.
They have large classes for kindergarten.
And then I guess my only concern, because it was brought up last night at Nottingham, would be with the bus, is that because at that point we'd have to look at the bus numbers adding 2 full-day kindergartens. I'm not sure if those students would be able to fit, if we added 30 additional students on the AM and the PM buses. I'm not sure if,
It would be 15.
You'd be adding
17,
15 students.
16 students.
Yeah.
But no, it's a valid concern.
right, but I don't think all of them take the buses now. A lot of them get
Right.
dropped off and picked
Right.
up because it's half-day. So that would just be another concern that I would think we'd have to look at enrollment figures for that.
Small buses, we might not have to worry about it, though.
I don't think I'd be concerned, but definitely we would have to take a look at it.
Right.
Do we have a classroom for it as well? There's room
We
for
would
it?
use the old tech lab, now called the multipurpose room.
Okay.
Because we have so many laptops, we don't need that room for all the desktops.
Like, I was thinking this was the,
No.
That's a
So
lot.
then, so that's the cost at the top, and then at the bottom highlighted area is what it would cost for a full-time curriculum director, which I originally had in the budget, and we discussed it and took it out because that increased your budget immensely, so.
$70,000, is that the going rate?
I think you're going to find for curriculum directors, it's all over the place. I think that it's an administrative position, I would think you'd have a quasi-administrator. In the degrees that are necessary, I would think 70,000 is about as low as you want to go. Some of them go up 90, 95, depending on the district.
What does the one in Nottingham make?
76, I think. 70, 75, 76, something like that. I think.
How many years has he been there?
It's right around 75.
Yeah.
So according to Tim's theory, if we get an old person, there would be no family health insurance, right?
There you go.
Yeah, but they're gonna be out sick more.
But we don't have to pay a sub for them, so it doesn't have to be included.
So, I mean, that's not a decision that you necessarily need to make tonight, but keep
But
in
it's a
mind, I
discussion
mean,
we
it's,
need to
it's
have.
still out there as you work through your budget, so.
Well, you have to say, I like that number for the kindergarten much more than what that Warren article was last
years.
year and the last few years. That's a huge difference in that number, and that's much better.
I know we're gonna have the K
Talk to that.
kindergarten discussion. So, yeah, I'll just leave it to then.
We'll do it. Any other questions on the proposed budget? You all set with? Yeah, bring it back again next week.
Well, I think I would like to have a little bit more of a discussion, and, I mean, I don't know, yeah, we've talked about a couple of things, but even taking those couple of things out, are we happy with what they're going to bring back, just bringing those couple of things? Taking those couple of things out? Are we happy with the bottom line, just taking those couple of things out that we've discussed?
We?
Well, that's what I'm, no, that's
No,
what I'm
I'm not
saying.
happy.
Oh, well, that's what I'm saying, is like, I'm,
Prepared to talk about it.
like,
yet,
I feel
though.
like we haven't, I mean, we've gone through it line by line and talked about a couple of
I
things,
mean, that was
but,
pretty quick and easy. I mean, I want a chance to look at it and go over it and
Dig in.
analyze it. So I think that we're gonna have to have this discussion at the next meeting and bring back our recommendations after we've all had a chance to go over it and digest it.
and I understand that, and I understand that that's our prerogative. I also think that we can look at this and say, this is the bottom line that we would like to see, and then we can let the professionals that work every day with this budget come back to us with their suggestions of where to make the cuts. That's just what I would like to
So
see.
right now, we're like, what, 3% below?
No,
Oh, no,
No, about even.
0.28%.
yeah.
Well, about even.
you're, I think it was 0.2%, something like that
0.2,
below.
that's
And
what I
then we're gonna
missed.
add in the insurance that we just got today, so,
So-
you know, you're gonna be up.
You're down one teacher, that's $100,000. You're down $300,000 in a bond payment, and we're even?
Well, we're up about that, and then new Co-Brown students too,
Why?
284,000 for
15.
that.
Quite willing to argue about the Co-Brown numbers too when we get there.
What I would like to see, so how about if I just say this? What I would like to see is, so what our default budget is going to be is the 11,800 minus the 300,000 or whatever. I would like us to see getting,
So, the fall budget gets recalculated, so.
Yeah,
Well-
we
No
haven't
idea what's
gone
gonna be.
there yet.
so I would like to see us closer to what our default budget is going to be. You know, because I have a feeling that if we present this budget, even though it's down, you know,
It's not gonna be down once the insurance goes in.
right, it's,
Yeah.
yeah. So I would like to see, I mean, I don't know an exact number because I don't know what the default budget's going to be. Ideally, it would be below the default budget because
So 11,000, what is it? What is our budget this year?
11,818.
11.8,
Million eight.
okay. So you gotta take 300,000 off, that's 11.5.
That's what?
11.5. If you take $300,000 off, just alone, without any playing around with numbers, 300,000 is the bond payment. So if you take the 11.8 less the bond payment, that's 11.5. We have, you guys argued all summer long, but you can't anymore. We have 379 students. That's about 30 less than last year in K through 8. I understand the Co-Brown issue. We are gonna drop, and I'm being conservative, 15, but really closer to 20 next year. We need to look at that. We are making a budget for next year, not this year. So we're going to have, if you look at the amount of kids coming in, let's say 30, and the amount of kids going out, it's pretty clear that that's 50. That's a difference of 20, so I only said 15. So we're gonna have 15 less kids. I already looked. You're gonna have 15 less kids minimum next year unless we have a whole bunch of people move in, and I hope we do. I truly hope we do. Because it's more people to help us with the tax issue. It doesn't look like that's happening though. So that puts us down, if you say 15 kids from 380 or 379, you're down to 365 kids. I think the teacher issue needs to be looked at.
And then
That's what you gotta keep in mind, those 50 kids, those 50 kids are going to Co Brown.
50 kids are going to come Brown,
That's
but
gonna
we're
cost.
averaging how many kids coming in?
Right.
30?
Sure. We
Okay,
can
so
say that.
that's a difference of 20, so we're gonna drop another, and so I'm only
In
saying
K through 8.
15.
In K through 8, we're gonna drop.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
but our budget for the high school is gonna increase.
Well, I understand, but there's also kids, more kids going out of Co-Brown probably than coming in.
Might be
Only
about the
6.
same.
Okay, 6. And we've offset 6 of those by adding 4 homeschool. All I'm saying is these are
But
all
we've had
things we need to
16
look at.
move in this year.
Every single year that I have been on this school board, we start out with a lot more than we end up with at the end of the year. You can go look at the numbers too. Do I think they're gonna drop precipitously? No, but it happens. It all works out. We're going to have to use probably some of our reserve. That's why it's there. I have fought for and I have supported those reserves since the day I got on this board. And I will fight for and can support adding to the reserves, knowing that we're gonna have to use some of that. But it's there to use, and if we need it, we'll use it. I don't have a problem with that.
I don't have a problem with it
So
either.
that's what we use it for. But anyway, it's pretty clear to me that unless something dramatically changes, and I don't believe that's gonna happen, we're gonna have 15 or more less kids in K through 8 next year. Co-Brown is a whole funny thing. It's such a wonderful
Brown is something that
school.
we cannot do anything
I
about.
understand, that's why we
It's
have
what
the
it is.
reserve. I understand, I agree with you 1,000%.
And that's
But we can
unfortunate
just
for
do
our
the
kids
best.
in this
I
school
just
that we
don't
cannot
agree
do
with those
anything
four
about
alt-ed.
it. It's very
Not all
unfortunate
dead.
that we cannot do
Those
anything about it.
Homeschool.
So why don't we all take a look at this, come up with
Exactly.
what numbers we wanna see, we'll come back at the next meeting, and,
Well, then I think
Throw
it's,
ideas.
to me, then it's
it's a first
just,
draft right now. we're
right,
okay.
no, but what I'm saying is that I don't think that we should ask Bob and his team to go and do anything until we say to them, this is the bottom line that
And
we're
we're not,
looking
other
at.
than the things we talked about today, adding the insurance, doing a few little twiddles. Yeah, we're not asking them to do anything different for 2 weeks from now, right now.
Well, we'll look at the technology page, we'll look at the highlights that you've done, we'll look at the class sizes again and go over that. You know, it is a dilemma K-8, because if you lose 15 kids K-8, if they're evenly dispersed across your grade levels, then you can't reduce a teacher. If you get 15 kids into high school, no matter what, you're paying per head.
Yes, but we
So
have,
it's,
that 37 teachers have stayed very stable for a number of years now. It's time to reduce that. Our kids have reduced 60 kids since we've reduced that amount of teachers.
Are we clear where we're going on this?
yeah,
For you?
for now.
Okay.
I would just encourage the board, as we go into next time, we really need some hardcore details about what we're gonna do with the curriculum director, what are we gonna do with the kindergarten,
Yep, we have
And-
kindergarten coming up.
and
We'll talk
any,
about that.
any details that you want from then. You know, obviously, the insurance number's gonna be in, you'll get a tighter budget. And then at that point, if there's any reductions, we would love it if you would let us know, you know, what number you're comfortable with, and then we'll go find it.
Thank you. All right, let's move on, guys.
Can we have one more thing for the business administrator?
Yes.
So I just wanted to let you all know that there was an article in Foster's today in regards to Health Trust and the refunds that were being distributed in the past. So, Tim, I'm not sure if this is what you've been asking me about all year, but
I didn't see the article, so I don't know.
Okay, I know, but I'm just trying to let you know, so I've like kept my eyes and ears open in regards to it. And somebody let me know about this morning, and they sent me this article. So basically what it's saying is that there were other past members that were not entitled to the reimbursements that had been given out to the school districts and the towns. And basically what ended up happening was Health Trust had said at that point, if they're not a part of our system now, they're not gonna get any of those refunds that we're giving back. Those towns and schools fought for it. They are now getting it. However, Health Trust went and dispersed all the money to all the other towns. So it says right here, the order also states that nothing in it prohibits the health trust from seeking repayments from the cities and towns it has already paid. Meaning that health trust may now come back and ask us for a certain portion of that money back.
And that's in today's Foster's?
Yep. And then even on the back of it, it talks about, it says the following Seacoast communities with entities received refunds from the 1.7 million disbursement in 2013 could be asked to repay some of it to cover the new $2.3 million order. And it includes Portsmouth, Rye, Stratham, Greenland, Hampton, Newcastle. I can give this to you, Tim, if you want it.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring it to your attention because I don't know if this is something that's gonna happen, but considering that we've already given the money back to the town, I don't know if this furthers how it's,
How much was it?
how much did we get received total? I'm not sure, Shane.
Couple hundred.
This goes back 3 or 4 years now, so I'd have to take the amounts from the past 3 or 4 years. Which I can do. I can email that to you.
Piece of
That
attorney's fees.
whole conglomerate, from what it was, is really having a lot of struggle. So they've just closed their insurance thing, liability insurance. So that's defunct now. That's gone. That was in the paper last week. And apparently there's some money owed to different people from that entity, and it's just a mess. I'm personally, and I have been for some time, quite concerned. I know it's been a couple of years that I've asked that we look to see if there's someone else to go to for our health insurance, because my concern is if they fall apart, as they appear to be doing, where is that gonna leave us? You know, in the middle of a year, and they all of a sudden, you know, our teachers and paras and everybody else needs that health insurance. So I'm very concerned, because they really are in trouble financially. They've just made themselves a big hole, and whether they can pull out of it, I don't know.
All right, any other questions for Marjorie? All right. That's it, then. Thank you. We'll move on to the principal's
Marjorie
report.
for anything else?
I do.
Yeah,
I can just
Yeah.
give you a copy of this though, so you don't have to
unless,
stick around
would
for
you
it.
like to rearrange the agenda and we can do this now? Anybody have a
What do
problem
we
with
need
that?
it for?
Well,
Is it
for
full
the
day?
Budget
committee
committee.
reports, yeah, budget committee reports, we could talk about that now if the board wants to.
Are we down to 8 or 7 items now?
Yeah, you hit a couple of them are, I mean, 10 sounds like a lot, but a couple of them are really easy, so I mean, they're not super involved. This isn't gonna be a lot of your time, so, let me just get these around.
All right, let's just do that now, I guess, so we can let her go. Unless there's any objection. Sorry to cut you off again, Ms. Young.
Pass them down.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
So would you like to expand on any of these, or?
I'd just take a look at it and let me know if you have any questions. Like I said, some of these are easily done, easily looked up. Others are a little more complicated, but, I think the big thing was the first one, which was just a general discussion, that I had with the chair. Again, having the Budget Committee have a representative from the Board of Selectmen and one from the school board. To be honest, those two representatives aren't dealing with the budgets every day, so, you know, the Board of Selectmen representative gets a list of highlights, a script to read off of when he explains. If he has questions, the town administrator attends these meetings and answers those questions. And I don't have someone like that, coming to these meetings to answer those questions, so, It would help the budget committee a lot to have those answers right then, so I don't have to come back and do these kinds of runarounds. Just having someone in attendance who does have the answers to those kind of questions, who can go through the budget, who's more familiar with it than we are. You guys live in the budget, we don't. So it was just a general discussion and request. So I don't know what you all think about that.
Well, if we can get a list of meeting times, then we can certainly try to. We don't have many nights left.
Fair.
Between 5 sets of negotiations and board meetings, we don't have many nights left. And it's oftentimes that we're in.
Budget committee only meets a few times, like quarterly though, so
Right.
it's not asking a lot, and they're not asking that
Well,
you
it
be
is
there for
asking
the.
a lot, though, I
Well,
think.
to ask, I don't know.
It's not the number of meetings, it's when they occur. Like last night, I was in negotiations in Stratford, and Scott was in a board meeting down in Nottingham. I mean, that's not an uncommon occurrence that we've got multiple meetings going on all at once, so, I mean, that's
I don't
a,
know what Marjorie's availability is for something like this, but having her there, like I said, a lot of these questions she probably could have answered. Did I get everything that you remember?
Yes'm. Nothing says yes'm.
Awesome.
Under capital reserve funds, the committee would like to know when these funds will be paid out. Recommends this be done as soon as possible. Aren't they already paid?
They're not paid out because I always wait for the audit to come back first and make sure that the DOE reports are done correctly.
Gotcha.
I wait until both of those things are done, just for safety purposes. I don't want to fund something and then all of a sudden, something's
I
wrong.
would just
and-
put that in and then say the date of the audit, and you will have answered that question.
So I guess my only question would be, because I don't know what discussion revolved around it, but in regards to the encumbrances for the criminal records check and the attorney and negotiator and the electricity and the fuel oil, we just fully encumber those for the year, thinking that's what we're gonna spend.
Based on previous year, I assume.
Well, we just fully encumber that amount in
The
that
whole
line, and if we release it at the end of the year, that's great, but especially with fuel oil, we don't know what kind of year we're gonna have. We may be spending more than that.
I think that was their point. How do you know?
Right, we don't know until we
Right.
get to the end.
That's
So
why
I
they
just-
wondered why it was encumbered. Why not just leave it until?
Yep,
I
I
think
would-
they were just confused about the encumbrance part of it.
I would rather fully encumber it now and release it at the end of the year, or in March, if I know we're gonna go over at that point, then I would encumber more of what I would expect at that point.
I think they
Because
just
it's a-
didn't realize that that was your policy or plan of how you do it. So I think that was
Okay.
all they were asking, was why it was like that. So you just explain that. I think that will answer the
Okay.
question.
I just wanted to make sure, like, that's what they wanted. Okay.
Does anybody have, you don't have with you, I have it on the truck, last year's final numbers from the budget committee. Do you have the budget committee packet?
I don't have it with me
Yeah,
now.
Well, I'm just kind of curious, reading the health trust thing. How much last year alone did we get back from health trust?
I don't know off the top of my head, Tim. Because in your unanticipated revenue last year, there was that, and there was the preschool surplus.
Oh, okay. I mean, because they're saying Portsmouth is 84,000, and I'm thinking, for us, it was a couple hundred. Seems like one of them was around 90,000.
Well, that, I think, they're just talking about fiscal year 2013.
Oh, all right.
That's what it says on page 1.
All right.
So as far as I can understand reading it, they're just talking about 2013, and then they gave back 2014, and I think maybe a partial of 2000, no, not 15.
Well, we had money coming in the 15, 16.
We had it for 15, 16 year, but it was in regards to 2014.
Do you need any other clarification on this, or are we good?
I don't think so. I think I'm good. If you could just email it for me.
Yep, I'll email it to you
and then I'll
tomorrow.
just put my
And
notes in
they're
there.
meeting again in December, so, I mean,
And I think that's the meeting we will be at, because isn't that when we present the budget?
yes.
So,
Okay,
That's all we needed you for tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Marjorie.
Anytime.
Jim, you're up.
All right, so, since I wrote the written report a week ago, much has come across my desk, so I have a fairly substantive addendum to pass around. The big thing from the original report that you had that I wanted to start with is the 8th grade trip. So Ms. Hashem and Mrs. Tyler are here tonight, our 8th grade advisors, and they did some work to gather feedback from students and families regarding the cost of the trip, the format of the trip in terms of an overnight versus multiple day trips, and also locations that were desired. And when looking at those 3 factors, they prioritized cost. So they put out some requests for bids from various companies, and you have those in the packet. Only one company gave us a nicely formatted, sort of full-page bid, so we gave you what we received from the companies. And Ms. Hashem and Mrs. Tyler have identified one trip that falls within the preferred price range, and fit in with locations indicated by students and families. So it's an EduTrips trip to Boston that they are recommending. And they are both here tonight, so if you have questions about why they leaned toward that one, I'm sure they would be happy to answer them.
Does anybody have any questions about the field trip?
How many days is it?
They're listed on the back here.
Where is it?
The options are on the next
option
page.
page, okay.
Yeah.
So it's 3 nights, 4 days. You know, taking a bus to Boston is very much shorter than taking a bus to Washington DC, so the actual time in the city having those learning experiences would be greater than if they were traveling farther.
I think it's a great idea.
Was there any feedback from the students? I know that they took the survey, because it was different than the one that the parents took. And there was something in here, but my 8th grader said that the results weren't shared with them. So I was just wondering, was there feedback given to the kids, or was there more than just the survey done, or how it was, you know, done with the kids or whatever?
Can you guys speak to that?
So we did not share the feedback that the students get from the survey because we thought it was more important to get feedback and approval from you before we went and we got the students' hopes up about one location versus another. And say, hey, we're going to Y place, but then we come here and we don't have approval for Y, so we have to go with Z. So we haven't shared anything with them yet before getting approval from.
So I didn't open the email that went to my son. He didn't take it, even though I reminded him 15 times. But I was just wondering what it looked like and what the feedback was from the 8th graders. You know.
So the questions were very similar to yours. We asked them the same location question that you had. Sorry. We asked the same location question that was on the parent survey. And then the other questions on the survey were in regards to fundraisers. So will you actively participate in the fundraisers that are presented for you as your fundraising opportunities? And are you interested in being part of a student leadership organization to help Mrs. Tyler and I with planning, organizing, running, facilitating the fundraisers? So it was a 3-question survey, just like the parent one.
And they seemed pretty, the surveys that you did get back were positive about Boston.
Yep, so there was a diverse response for the parent surveys as well as the student surveys for locations. And then as far as fundraising and being interested in helping, all students responded positively for actively participating in the fundraising process. And there were a handful of students that responded to wanting to be part of the leadership as well.
Anybody recall what the cost was for Washington last year? I know,
It was a lot.
Like 800 something?
800 something, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was
This says right here, for
Yeah.
them, it's $879, and I was read about, around the right, same price.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I mean, I think it's a great idea. I mean,
Yeah, I do too.
not even the cost factor piece of it for a couple $100 is not, I mean, there's so much to offer in Boston.
Absolutely.
And
And
now the
say,
kids will know about Boston, and they can go visit it and teach other people, you know, I think it's just overall a great experience. Because when will they actually ever go back to Washington DC?
I think that's kind of the point. I think it's a real
Yeah.
shame that they won't be able to go to Washington DC. Honestly, I think every kid should be able to experience Washington DC. I think there's a lot of culture there, and I think it's really cool to see that.
There's a lot of culture here.
As I said, that Boston
But-
is right there. That's not
Yeah.
difficult for them to get to
Yeah,
on their
but-
own with their families. I think Washington
How
DC
many
is a
people have
really,
actually done all this stuff? I can guarantee you, no one here has done all this.
this is, I don't know. To me, the Washington DC, it's like a one-time opportunity for kids to go with their whole class. It's
It is, but
it's
I
an
look at-
important experience. I don't know, like, can we do more fundraising to help with this? I think it would be an honest to God shame if they ended up not choosing Washington DC.
And I think it's a great opportunity, but I think because of the amount of money that it is, there were a number of kids that did not, and because of how far it is from here, there were a number of kids that did not participate last year and the year before. And I think we have to take that into consideration, that I think that we need to look at, you know, more kids and because my son's done a number of these things already with his family in Boston. But
That's-
to
yeah.
experience them, but my son's been to Washington DC 3 times
But
already.
most kids
already.
haven't and probably
Right.
won't. So this is their one chance to
experience
do
them
this. And I,
with his class is totally different than to experience it with your family also.
didn't you help with this last year a little bit with the Washington thing? I would be perfectly willing to chip in for something like
I think it's
that.
$14,000 difference.
This is
That's how much more they fundraise, 58
what the
figures.
parents wanted. Was this the other survey? What?
We surveyed parents on costs that they're willing to spend out of pocket, and then the overall cost of the trip. So the overall cost that parents were willing to spend out of pocket was roughly $300, and that was about 75% of the parents saying that's how much they wanted to spend. And with a trip just shy of 900, it wasn't feasible with the amount of time we have to fundraise, because all payments are due by the end of March, so that really gives us a really short amount of time to fundraise that much money for those kids. So that's why we ended up proposing this Boston trip for you.
And one more thing to add, the overall price that parents wanted the overall trip bracket to be in was between 500 and 700 as well. Whereas the quotes, last year's price for DC was 879, does that sound about right? Yes. Okay, and then different quotes for Washington DC for this year were ranging from $900 to $1,000 per child for the trip.
Any other comments or questions about this?
The only comment I have is I am concerned, I agree with Bree, a lot of kids are never gonna get a chance to go to Washington DC, and I think that's a shame. At the same time, certainly for the last 2 years, it's always been a concern, the hoops that we go through, not so much last year, but the year before, almost stealing money from several accounts in order to get the trip, to be able to for the kids to afford the trip. I just feel they need to start sooner if they want to go to Washington DC. They need to start a year or two sooner. So to me, it's 100% up to the parents. That's who I think that the listening should be to. If the parents want this or the parents want that for their children, then I'm very much in favor of that. And I'm also willing, you know, when we get there, to try to help, go around to some of the people in town and collect some money. But I just will always fall on the side of the parents to make the decision for their own kids.
I mean, this is part of the reason I was pushing for a 7th grade advisor, so that we can move this forward next year and get an earlier start on it
Yeah,
than
it's-
than doing this.
Well, we
That's why-
had a
that's why I think it's
7th grade
important.
advisor in, you know, that we voted in, that nothing got
No,
done
I-
with, because my son was in 7th grade last year, and nothing got done with that, so, and I totally get that, you know, but I think that you know,
Hold
we're
people
in the
accountable, it's fine.
situation,
I mean,
yeah.
I get that,
I
but-
think we're in the situation right now where we need to just look at the class that's here right now, and
Yep.
this is what
Yeah,
they're
but just-
bringing
I
forward,
agree.
and
I agree with you, but just going forward, if we could get an earlier start, I mean, it'd be great to have
Absolutely.
large
I
plans.
would like to know whether or not it's just the cost issue that's the problem for the parents. Like, what is their preference on the location? If cost wasn't an issue,
Oh, I
what would
think
be
it's
the
the
choice? I
cost.
mean, I assume that cost is the deciding factor
Sounds
here.
like it,
Because
yeah.
this proposal says includes Gettysburg. What if that was taken out and the trip was changed to 3 days, 2 nights? I mean, they'd still get to experience Washington DC for 3 days. That's pretty good. They'd still be able to do a lot of stuff. I mean, that would change, I assume that would change that bottom line dollar.
It's a day to travel. It's a day of travel and a day of traveling back.
Yeah, and that certainly is an issue. I mean, it's a travel to get to Washington
I
DC.
moved here from there, I know.
So it's, you know, so that takes up a lot of the time. But I just, every kid should have a chance to go to Washington DC.
I
Every single
100%
kid.
agree.
So you look for approval of this at this time?
We are if we do this, we need to make a deposit by the first week of November, so there is a little bit of a time crunch issue here. So, and then in addition to that, Ms. Hashem and Mrs. Tyler are also looking for 2 additional fundraising activities to be approved by the board. 50/50 raffles and bake sales at basketball games, in addition to the things you've already approved.
So as a school board member, I'd like to make a motion that we leave it up to the 8th grade advisor and the parents as to where the kids go.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
And what were the 2 fundraisers?
So big
so-
sales at basketball games.
Motion to approve the 2 fundraisers,
55.
as long as they don't interfere with any other fundraisers.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good to go.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. So technology, Mr. Robert had written a letter about the cost of changing our internet service, upgrading to a wider bandwidth, I think. So basically, he can do that, but staying with the same company, and he can do that at a significant cost savings,
Taking
switching.
a 5-minute break, you can keep going, or the rest of you can break. So I'm going to the bathroom.
8:30, would you mind? We can just take a 5-minute break, I guess.
All right.
Carry on.
Carry on then.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you.
So switching to the new plan, we wouldn't incur any penalties because we're staying with the same company. It would be a cost savings of about $2,800 this year, and then would result in a $7,000 reduction in the internet services line request for next year. So he's going to try to make that happen for November 1st. Worst case scenario was we would have it switched for December 1st.
Awesome, great job.
Nice. I like it.
Never hurts to ask. Awesome.
Also in my written report in the packet, I spoke a little bit about Adrian and my efforts to enforce policy JJH, and just wanted to sort of put a mea culpa out there that it wasn't as smooth as it could have been, and that we learned a lot. And should that policy stand as it is written, we have some ideas of how to improve the process going forward. But you also have a first reading of a revised version of this policy tonight that we would support, which takes out the sort of contentious progress report piece that was really the sticking point this time around. All right, and then moving on to the packet that I
So-
handed out tonight. Yes.
Can I just interrupt you for a second? For policy JJH, we have a number of changes. We'll probably have a first reading and a second reading of it. It's my understanding that there are some students who, right now are not eligible to play because of the strictness of the policy. And that people are looking for a exemption for that. Is that something?
I don't think they're looking for an exemption. I think the policy's been upheld. I think what we want to do is change the policy for future.
Okay, we could, so if the board wants to do that, I mean, we have the power to do that. But changing the policy, we'd have to change the policy today, right? Normally, what we do is we bring back the policy, we look at it, we get for that. There are playoffs that are going on tomorrow, this weekend, that kids right now are gonna be exempted from. People who have from what I've heard, at least they've corrected their grades. Everybody's up to snuff. It's just that they had, yeah, if you guys don't mind, I wouldn't mind having somebody has more information about that. So if we're gonna do something like that, we'd have to have an exemption of the policy, or we'd have to change the policy right now. And personally, I think there's a lot of changes to the policy that we should actually go through with a little more detail. So, I don't know. I don't know what the board, what your opinions are on that. You guys mind if Mike mentions it? Just explains the situation? Would that be okay? Yeah. My board? Mike, sorry.
Great, thank you.
Just while we're talking about it.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for taking the time. Is this thing on, bud? Yep. All right. So thanks for, I understand Mr. Rooney put forward that policy adjustment that you guys are going to consider. And so the reason that some of us are here and I'm here to talk about it is because, well, one, like I mentioned last time I was here, we've been talking about this for a very long time in an attempt to move forward on it, and we hadn't gotten there yet. And now we have students that have fallen into the trap that this policy has created. And so what we would like, if the board is going to consider a change to this policy going forward, that they might consider looking at the students that have been affected now and giving an exemption to them to finish with their team for the rest of this season if they have met with what the potential changes are going to be. So if they've gotten their grades to where they should be since progress reports and administration and the teachers are comfortable with that, we'd like to see them be able to come back and finish up with their team. That's all we're asking for. There's a number of students that were affected, and I think the mission of this policy is to put academics first, to make sure that the students are fully aware of that and that there are consequences if their academics fall behind. But we don't want to punish them and take away their motivation either. So we'd like to see them do what's right, get back to where they should be, and if they can do that, then have them reinstated back to their team. So we're asking the board to consider that for those students affected, so that they can finish up this weekend and next week with their teams, if you'd agree.
Thank you.
Any questions? Is that concise? Clear? All right. Thanks, Steve, for letting us speak.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
So I had that on the agenda, but due to a typographical error, it never made it onto the agenda. But what Scott gave us for that policy for section 7 is in our packet for JJH. Section 7 is all students must maintain passing grades in 4 classes to be eligible to play sports, including tryouts. Eligibility is determined by the most recent report card and midterm progress report. Given that low grades at progress reports are correctable, the athletic director, in conjunction with the teacher, administration, and student athlete, will develop an intervention plan to correct the deficient grades. This plan will be monitored weekly, and eligibility will be determined weekly until the quarter or season ends. So I'd like to put forth a motion that we go with this wording for that policy for the remainder of this school year or until we update our policies.
Where was that wording?
It's in our packet. Is that Scott?
I know, but
Sorry, it's,
yeah, but what you just read didn't seem like what you just read.
What?
Right, that doesn't make any sense. So on page 70 to add to 71, I got you. Yeah, I was wrong.
Sorry.
I was like, I'm reading and that does not sound right. Okay.
I think what I would prefer to do, having been part of the policy committee and looking at this whole policy, is to give the waiver to these students at this time, but to take a look at this policy, bring this back to the policy committee again, and take some of the procedures that are in this policy that do not belong in this policy.
I have a list.
Okay, and take them out of it and put them into the athletic slash student handbook where they belong.
Yeah, that's what I'm proposing, is that we grant this waiver for now until we modify the policy.
Right, and I think as long as they have brought their grades up, because I think there needs to be a little bit more wording in even what Scott wrote, in that we need to put this back onto the student and they need to take some ownership of this, not just bringing their grades back up, but making sure that they're touching base with their teachers and with the athletic director and with the administration on a weekly basis to make sure.
That's what this is.
But it doesn't say that they're taking the responsibility of it. I think it needs to, put that responsibility. We're trying to teach these kids some responsibility, at the same time as allowing them to continue on. So I'd like to take the policy back and, I mean, it's a 3-page policy to, 4-page
Oh, I
policy.
completely agree with you. I just want to grant the waiver so that these
And that,
students
and
can
I'm all for
finish their
granting the
seasons.
waiver, I'm fine with that, as long as they have brought their grades up, as long as administration is saying, and the athletic director is saying that they've brought their grades up,
Yep.
that's fine, I'm fine with that, but I think, I don't wanna just say we're gonna put that into the policy.
No, right, yeah, sorry. If I made the motion incorrectly, I'll correct it now, but this is a waiver for the policy written, this is the waiver. This is not the changing the policy yet, we need to look at the policy and definitely, there's many other changes that the athletic committee came up with for that policy that we want to get in there at some point as well.
So, my thought on this is that I totally agree that this policy is wrong, and it should be advised. Progress report should be completely out of there. But policy is policy. If we want to change it for future dates, I'm all that, but I do not want to open up Pandora's box on policies by making exemptions. A policy is a policy. If we want to change it, I'm all about changing it because I don't like it, but to do a waiver, I'm not in favor of that.
Part of the reason I'm in favor of doing this waiver is because we tried to change this policy a year ago. The athletic committee got together and did it, and for many reasons,
It failed to.
it just never made progress. We never got through the policy committee, and now it's hitting students, and it's not necessarily their fault if this is the way it should be, and it's affecting students
These are
now.
actually more stringent than any high school policy that you'll see or
Oh,
anything
it's
like
totally,
that, yeah.
it's garbage,
I mean, I think-
for sure, but I
Right.
just
I just don't think it's fair to punish them because we couldn't get our act together and fix the policies. I understand what you're saying about, we don't want to be granting exemptions left and right, but this is somewhere where I think it's deserved.
Is the administration happy with the changes in this policy? Is the athletic director happy with the changes in this policy? That's my question.
the athletic
because
director was-
honestly, I think this board spends a lot of time on sports and a lot of time on sports policy that could be better used in other areas and on other policies. And if I'm trusting them to understand this and do their jobs, if that's Mike's recommendation and Ms. Young's recommendation, then I'm happy to just go with what they recommend.
Changes, so this is a long storied history.
Yeah.
But the original changes, I'm not sure where those came from, but the athletic committee got together last year around this time and met and had a number of other changes to that. They took that as a rough draft,
So
and
who made these changes?
I'm not sure who made those changes. Those I think came from the
How did it
policy
end up in
committee.
our lap?
They came from
today
the
with
policy
these
committee
changes?
a year ago,
Policy committee.
over a year ago.
Over a year ago.
Yeah, right. So the athletic
A
committee.
lot of stuff that needs to come out of it. I mean,
Right.
like your whole page, like 17, 18, and 19, it's already in your student handbook. It doesn't need to be in your policy again. So there's so much stuff that needs to be, Scott and I met on this today, and we knew this was going to be talked about. It's not a matter of just sitting down and saying, he's already has some stuff put together, but it's a matter of saying, we're gonna bring it down to like this.
I'm wondering why this came to the board in this format, though. Like, why did the policy committee not meet with the athletic director and with Scott to bring us something to actually vote on? Why is it coming to us like
Because
this?
it was asked that it was brought to
Right.
this meeting, and just like everybody else here, we have full-time jobs and trying to negotiate
through the
and trying
cracks
to
and stayed in
get,
the
you know,
cracks. Yep.
trying to get another meeting in, just like everybody else. It's kind of hard to meet, but it was asked that it was brought to this meeting, so it was brought to this meeting and it's not complete, and that's why I'm saying that it needs to come back to
Yeah.
the policy committee to be completed, because it's not complete.
That's where it belongs. I
Yep,
mean,
yep.
I don't think any of the policies should come to us until they've had a chance to be looked at.
I-
That's
I'm-
why the
I asked-
policy committee exists.
Absolutely. I asked them, the policy committee, to look in this and bring these forward. I thought it was gonna come in a more complete manner.
Okay.
Until I got the packet, I didn't realize that it wasn't done yet, so.
So I was the policy person last year, And I can tell you that, and it's all I can do to not fall asleep when we get into sports policy. Everybody had their own opinion. No two people had the same opinion. I had no opinion, to be honest with you. We spent more time last year on sports policy than all of the other policies put together. Easily, far more time. I can remember meeting with people with Scott. We had Mrs. Daypre there. We had other people there. I mean, it just went on, and it always seems to be such a huge deal. I mean, I don't have anything to say about the sports policy. Other than it's incredible the amount of time and I don't see why it should be so difficult. But it is. Everybody has a different opinion.
Is there a second on the waiver? That's for now.
I second the waiver.
Second the waiver. All right. Is there any other discussion on the waiver? We can talk about
Could
policy.
you read the waiver for me?
It's in the packet on page 70. Is to use this in place of JJH7 until we update JJH7.
The whole policy, yeah.
Right. Whole policy needs to be updated. There's no question about that. But
But this waiver is supposed to last for how long?
I said until we modify the policy, till the policy
And
comes
we're
back.
gonna kick this back to the policy committee
Yes.
immediately?
Yes.
Okay.
I hope it's in the next, hope we have the suggested changes in the next board minutes. Do you have these? I emailed you these. I'll tell you after. We'll talk after.
I can't guarantee that I mean, with negotiations and everything, I can't guarantee
Yeah, I know.
that we'll meet before then, but before the next meeting. Oh, well, we have 3 weeks, so we might be able to.
Okay.
I would like to see an end date, or I'm going to vote no. This one page caused more consternation last year than almost all of the other. With some people feeling that it should be a C, other people, and I know Scott Rooney is one, that felt that as long as you pass, you should be able to play sports. To me, it's quite clear, if sports is part of public education, then I think that pretty much any kid that tries hard in school should get to play sports. And I do remember quite clearly Scott Rooney bringing up over and over the point that some of us are just not as smart as others, and we struggle very hard, and the best we can do is maybe a D or a C minus. But we still should be able to play sports, and I don't disagree with that. You know, I just, the only thing that I argued then and I'll argue now is that it seems to me, if you have a student that is just not doing a damn thing and gets Fs or gets Ds, then I'm not sure that student should be able to play sports. If you have a student that works like a dog to get Ds, then I would want them on every sports team I had. I don't know. So it just, but I don't mind the waiver. I just would like to know what the policy is at a date. So if we ended this on, and I know you're optimistic, if we ended this on June 30th of 2017, I would be happy. So the waiver until June 30th, 2017. That gives you quite a few months to come up with a policy that I know isn't going to slip through another year like all of these have, is all I'm saying.
I'm happy modifying my motion to that. Are you okay with your second?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Stay.
Abstain? Yes or no?
No.
No. 4-1. Thank you. Ms. Young, I am very sorry to have interrupted your report.
Oh, that's okay. No, it's a good cause. So just so I can understand, students who were removed from the teams can play again
According to this.
effective tomorrow.
According to the wording of this.
Pending the wording on
It may, depending
Yeah,
on the student.
as long as they brought that grade up.
Sorry, before you move on, just to be clear, so for those students, I'll touch base with the administration tomorrow morning, and we'll look at their individual situations, each one of them, and make a determination for them? Is that okay?
As long as they brought their grades up, yep.
Yep.
That'll be the judgment of the administration.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you all for considering that very much.
Okay. All right, moving on to the little packet that I handed out tonight. Several things are going on, keeping in the athletics vein. A parent emailed today and suggested that we celebrate our cross-country team's accomplishments to date and also send them to their state championship on Saturday with great fanfare. So the suggestion was to hold sort of a very brief, what I'm calling a hallway pep rally tomorrow afternoon, and board members are certainly welcome to attend. It is a secret from the children, though, so thank you. So if you're interested, we will be starting that at 1:55, and it will be a very quick sort of procession down each of the 4 main hallways with kids cheering, clapping, high-fiving, and generally showing good cheer. So you are all invited. I've also, in the last week, had several requests for fundraising. So I have identified those for you in bulleted form here, but then there's also the full-length version that the teachers or paraprofessionals submitted to me. So I am looking for you to determine approval status of those. One of them is tomorrow, and I apologize for the short notice. I was excited about it and said, yes, let's go ahead, and then realized that it was the day after the board meeting. So mea culpa on that one as well.
So, do you want to just do that now?
We can do them all, I guess. There's, yeah.
Motion to approve all of these fundraisers?
Second?
Any discussion?
So these are the ones on the handout,
Yes.
tonight's handout?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Right.
Fantastic, thank you. In terms of clubs, the paraprofessional clubs was the discussion of a recent clubs committee meeting. The committee supports the clubs as described, and I did include those for you. They had been in your packet 2 weeks ago, and I also included them in this little packet for you again tonight. We do have some money remaining. There's about $2,000 remaining, so there is the potential for additional clubs to be added. And one thing I have discovered is that Northwood students have great initiative and great ideas, and I've had several verbal and written petitions from students in the last couple weeks regarding clubs that they would like to see. So I would like to advertise those ideas to staff and see if we can get some paraprofessionals to take on some of those kid ideas. And then also the clubs committee briefly discussed, we have currently 15 hours that are not assigned. And we'd really like to get some student leadership options in place and put a student council in place. Some of that would certainly happen within the school day, but then the 15 hours could be additional after-school hours to support the student council activities. So I'm looking for the board's approval on both of those as well.
Motion to approve the paraprofessional clubs and the 15 hours for the council.
Second.
Teacher's contract, CBA.
Any discussion on this?
So is the 15 hours in their collective bargain
Yes, it's monies that's still left over.
for clubs?
Clubs.
And we're not going to use it for a club?
Well, student council is a club.
Government club,
Yeah,
student government.
yeah, it is a club.
You can call
It was a club 3 years ago that someone else started, and they just have not continued with it. 3 years ago.
So why, if the club committee supports using 15 hours to support the development and facilitation of a student council club, why do they need our okay? It's in the CBA.
We brought all the other clubs.
We had a discussion last.
Yeah,
Okay, aye.
we brought them all.
Yep.
We might as well
No,
just keep
it's-
doing what we're doing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carries.
Sorry.
Thank you, and that is all I have.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I have questions.
Questions for Ms. Young?
I do.
Okay.
So back to the math testing. I'm curious if any consideration has been made to list the 125, 130 kids that we still have in our school that are less than proficient in math as per the testing done last fall, and trying to figure out some way in an extracurricular activity way to help them rather than just leaving them in their regular classes. And I don't mean it that way, rather than just let them continue on through and have a hard time catching up. Do you understand my question? So have we got about 130 kids, 125 to 130 kids. Have we thought about, because we know who those kids are, the data can show exactly who those kids are. And have we thought about going to the parents and saying, you know, stuff happens, we're sorry, your kids are not proficient in math. We have come up with this, that, or these ideas to help them. Are you interested? Work after school, on a Saturday morning, pay teachers a stipend to help them out somehow. You know, just leaving them, the third are now in the fourth are in fifth, et cetera. And they're still struggling. I'll bet anything they're still struggling. Maybe they're getting better, but they're still struggling. So has any thought process to how we could help those students become proficient in math and catch up to their peers?
Absolutely. Not necessarily outside of the school day, because I'm certainly working to improve instruction and maximize learning for kids within the school day as our primary intervention. So in the past, in the last couple of years, there's been a response to instruction block of time that has been primarily dedicated to literacy. And I think the underlying reason for that is that in order to access some math questions on tests, for example, you need to be able to read them. We are broadening our scope in RTI a little bit this year. We're now calling RTI Win, by the way, what I need. And so students who genuinely have deficits in math will get more support in math. If they also have deficits in reading, we are going to continue to prioritize reading. But we'll find times outside of that block to support them in math as well. The data meetings that happen biweekly for each grade level in the past have only looked at literacy data, and this year every other data meeting, so half of the data meetings will look at math. That has already started this year, and that will help teachers to personalize learning through instructional skills focus, grouping students, remediation type activities, as well as enrichment. I will be leading teacher teams through in-depth analysis of smarter balance scores, both to look at trends, so last year or the year before and last year, to look at sort of overall trends, but then also to look at the needs of specific individuals, so that within core instruction, which is the bulk of a kid's time during the school day, that they're getting the intervention that they need, both within that core instruction and during an intervention block. Also bumping up Title I, which is primarily K through 5, but starting to try to catch some of those math deficits earlier and remediate them earlier on. And then one other support we have too is we have a literacy consultant, Marianne Nice, who historically has been spending the bulk of her time in data meetings rather than in classrooms and coaching teachers. And this year with our new reading specialist, she feels that she can back away from the data meetings a little bit, which will free her up to work more with teachers. While she is a literacy specialist, good teaching is good teaching. So what works in literacy often works in math in terms of structure, grouping, approach, techniques, research-based instructional strategies. So she is going to be working with teachers during both core instruction and the intervention block to bump up both math and literacy instruction more.
Okay, so I guess to end that part of my question, I would say to you, in my opinion, this board can always come up with some thousands of dollars to support a well-thought-out, defined program. And I would appreciate it if you give some thought to how this school could help that 125 and 130, even if it means paying a teacher to work with. If only 20 of those 100 and odd kids would come, that would tickle me to death. You know, if the parents would be willing to go through the effort. So then the other half of my question is, in an effort to keep as many people mad at me as I can, have you thought about the fact that there's obviously an amount of teachers who are struggling to teach math, and are we doing anything about that through our professional development programs to kind of target, you know, because I know, not only do you know exactly the kids that are having a problem, you also know, it's very simple to go back and see exactly the teachers who are having a struggle teaching that 120 odd kids. So, and I know you can see that. I can't because I'm not privy to the thing, but you guys have that information. So are we doing anything to help? Professional development paid for by the taxpayers is designed to improve the teaching ability of the teachers for our students in our town. So have you looked at that? Have you looked at the teachers that are quite clearly struggling to teach math? And how can we improve their math instruction capabilities?
Certainly. Research would suggest that the most effective professional development is job embedded and in the form of instructional coaching. So that's certainly what Marianne Nice can help to provide. There's also great workshops. We have 2 teachers at a math conference today and tomorrow as we speak. And then also, as Adrian and I embark into the formal observation and supervision and evaluation process, we will be able to target individual needs and coach both ourselves and also recommend additional supports for teachers. Go Math also provides training as part of their implementation of the program here. They have a fairly standard training that they provide, but they also asked for input from me in terms of additional things or things to include. And just based on the walkthroughs and the observations, I was able to identify strengths and areas that I thought we needed some support in. And so both Go Math trainings that we did this year so far have looked at some of those specific things that Adrian and I have observed.
I'm going to bring that subject up again in a couple of weeks. The reason I've held off is because there's an agreement between the negotiators of the teacher contract and the teachers who are negotiating the contract that I can't talk about the contract. And I was really hoping that that would be done by tonight. It's not, although it's almost done. And there's something in there that really interests me regarding professional development. And so I really wanted to bring that out, so I'll have to wait to bring it out. But I'm quite interested in a little more direction in professional development. And it's something that teachers want, the professional development. I am more than willing to pay my fair share for them to get that professional development. I just would like to see a little better or a little more direction to our needs for our students. I don't care about other students. I care about Northwood students. Mm-hmm. And it's obvious that we have some issues, and so I would like to see that professional development be directed to those issues. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Ms. Young? That's good. Thank you. On to the enrollment report.
We have the enrollment reports on 58, 59, 60. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, it's the same question I always ask, and see if we can get a census report at some point.
Yep. Excuse me.
There were more kids today than I usually see on a Thursday.
The bus?
Yeah.
What bus you on?
I don't know, whatever ones go by me when I'm on Bow Street coming off. There's like 4 buses that go by.
6 is packed.
I don't know.
Your kids are on that one that is screwed up?
My kids don't go on the bus,
Oh.
period. No, I was saying there were more kids on the buses today than there normally are on a Thursday, because I usually have to come off Bow Street and 3 buses, sometimes 4 go by me, and I wouldn't even say they're half full, the ones that go by me.
You know the 16 students that we increased in Go Brown, are those mostly freshmen? You have any idea on that?
No, they're not.
They're upperclassmen?
Yeah, because I looked at the grade levels and it seemed like they were spread out. We had,
I think that was what it was.
I can tell you. We had 8, 7 and 9th grade. 7 in the 10th grade. 4, moving into 11th, so it switched, and then our 12th grade went down. We only had, they kind of spread out.
Okay. The only other thing, just looking at this reminded me of, we are gonna have to look at our proposed budget for next year. We do have the class breakdowns and stuff. I'd love to see maybe something, even something we could put in a policy that says, what the recommended class size is for grades.
It's in the CBA. The board will make every effort not to go above, I don't remember what the number is.
25 or something like that. It's
I
way
can't
up there.
remember what it is, but it's 20.
Yeah.
It's 20.
25?
I still like to see what
20.
I still like to see what a good range is. What range should we shoot for, right? Because if we have that, if we want to have 15 to 20 kids in the class, right, or something, whatever makes sense. Professionally, I'm not an educator, I don't know, and maybe it's different for each grade level. But regardless of what we're contractually obligated to do, but what is the optimal target? Where do we want to be? I think that could help us make decisions on budgets too, and see where we should go. So I don't know if that's.
Have you looked at the state requirements? The state, whatever you call them?
That's the minimum requirements of state, right?
Yeah, minimum standards.
Yeah, minimum standards? I mean,
Yeah, that should be part of it. Yeah.
So could you bring that to us too then?
Yeah, those are high. Those are around, I think they're around 25.
Well, it's lower in the lower grades and higher in the higher grades.
They're still, they're basically, I can bring them. There's
Yeah, I
basically
mean-
not to exceed numbers.
And
Right.
I'm not
That's fine.
arguing with you, it's just
3
that
to
your
25.
idea of high might be different than somebody else's idea of high. Our class sizes, I would never want to get to the minimum standards of the state. That's not my goal, but our class sizes are pretty small.
Right, the only point I was making is that the state, those, for school approval, those are not to exceed numbers. They're not recommended optimal numbers, they're not to exceed numbers. But we can bring those.
Yeah, I'm more interested in, what an educator wants for a class size. What is an effective class size?
A teacher for each student.
I
Sorry.
don't think that's true.
I don't think that's
It is
effective, though. Kids learn off each other.
Yeah.
They help each other.
Any other questions about the
Two to one.
enrollment report?
That's better.
No? Okay, we're gonna move on to policies. First policy is ACE, procedural safeguards, non-discrimination on the basis of handicap disability. It's checked as a reaffirm, Barbie, is that true? So we just need to say yes or no? on this one?
Basically, we're just.
Did you wanna say a few words on things? Should I wait for you?
No, I was just gonna, I gotta get back to it, sorry. Where'd it go? Since I hate technology. So yeah, it's just following the sample policy.
Yeah.
It's just a statement directing interested persons to the New Hampshire DOE's procedural safeguards.
Okay, can I get a motion to reaffirm this then? Or is it reaffirming or we're actually changing it? Because looks like we're striking out quite a bit.
We're striking out, everything.
This is like the
and-
reaffirming reading.
Yeah.
Striking out everything and adopting pretty much.
All right, so is there a motion to adopt the policy as written?
Moved. So moved.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Tim, you voting on this one?
Same.
Same. Well. Okay, next is the access to minutes and public records. This is a first reading, I believe. I assume this is, again, going to the New Hampshire State Board Association standards,
Yes,
the model policy.
model policy. Yes.
Anybody have any suggestions or any changes they want to do before we move this to second reading?
So that one's been changed from what we had?
Yep. The sample policy from the,
Photocopying prices went up
To what?
25 cents.
Is that a reasonable number?
that's what I was told we charged, because it was blank when I looked at it. He said, Scott said that's what we charged.
They charge for other things.
What's that?
That's what they charge for other things.
But yeah, I guess so. That's what the SAU charges for copies. I don't know if it's written anywhere, but it is now.
You know that page 66 and 77 are duplicated, right?
66. Oh, just in here, you mean, yeah?
Yeah.
That's, well, 67 is probably what we should be voting on, because it
So this is from
does run out the names.
our School Board Association?
Sounds like it.
It's from the, no, it's from the, what is it? The, yeah, School Boards Association, sample policy.
I mean, as far as I know, and I'm quite certain, if I wanted to, I generally would take my right to know to the superintendent's office, but I actually thought that it was supposed to go to an elected official. I mean, I would like that checked. That came up recently.
And this
So that would be
says-
number 3, all requests for public records must be made through the SAU superintendent's office. I'm pretty sure that if somebody came in with a request to know to the school board, you would have to honor it.
I can't remember the discussion that we had, but I think it was that it had to go through the SAU because the SAU would make the determination.
I understand, I don't really care what the lawyer says and what the SAU says, I'm more concerned about what the law says.
Well, and that's what the RSA 91A 4
I'll look at
and
it.
dash A.
Right.
So let's bring this back for a second reading without any changes with this possibility of we'll look into the law and make sure that this is kosher, right? Good, we can vote on that.
Is there, one more question, so the 25 cents is there. Is there anything regarding, so there's been a couple of changes of the law in just the last few months. For one, anything electronically has to be supplied at no charge, is that in here?
It is.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Trying to think of what the other new Supreme Court thing just came out.
What was your question, Tim, so that I,
What?
oh, your question was about coming to a school board member versus going to the SAU?
Right. Some part 3.
Yeah, number 3.
Okay, moving on to policy EEA. This is, I'm gonna make a motion, it's just a first reading, so we're gonna bring it back for a second reading. This is also a first reading. Barbie, can you just make a note on the third line of the italicized paragraph
On EEA?
on EEA? And pupils who attend private schools? No, private schools?
I'm sorry, say what, on the pupils?
Pupils who attend private schools is next to S on privates, so it says private schools. I don't think we want in our policy.
Multiple schools.
Yes, private schools, multiple
privates.
Very private. Any comments on this one, any other changes? Seeing none, we'll bring this back for a second reading as well, the next meeting, hopefully. The other policies in our packet are our favorite JJH, which I think we should skip for now.
The one I wanted.
Right, we have a number of changes that we need to send to the policy committee for that. Hopefully I thought they were gonna be in this packet, but they're not. And same with,
Job descriptions part of that policy? Or are they separate?
Separate.
I have to look, it's separate.
Okay.
There's actually a, There's a coach job description. I think there's also an athletic director job description, but I don't know. Oh, yeah, it's both, they're both in here. So we'll get back to those at a later time, hopefully soon.
There are typos in the athletic.
There are all
director.
kinds of them. Yeah, I have a list of, we had a list and went through, like those duplicated lines and stuff like that. If there's something you want to point out now, you can, or email her and Scott and let them know. Okay, so that's it for policies today. I think we've had enough of them anyway. Superintendent's report.
All right, we'll start on page 80. And you can see the nominations for basketball coaches. Mike Brieger, Don Dodge, and Mark Glad.
So moved.
Very good. No discussion on these? I assume Mark will be able to do both the A and B teams, so have a practice or have games at the same times. Yes.
Makes sense.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Very good.
The other personnel sheet I handed out to you separately. The first is Nancy Kavanaugh for curriculum coordinator, and that would be for the remainder of the year for 2 days a week. That's what we had talked about. Jocelyn and I had an opportunity to interview a number of candidates, and Nancy was our selection for this particular position.
So moved.
Second that. Any discussion? Is this what she does? Has she done curriculum instruction before?
Yeah, she's been in administration for a while, building principal, very educated lady, and I think that she'll be a wonderful addition for the remainder of the year.
New to town, looks like she's from New York.
What's that?
New to town, she looks like
Fix it,
she's
Jeff.
from New York.
She has a second home in New Hampshire and is moving here full-time.
She is retiring and needs a hobby.
A hobby.
Perfect.
Can be her hobby.
We should be a good fit then. A hobby or a challenge?
Hobbies can be challenging.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, and the other two nominations you see down there are for long-term subs positions.
So moved.
Any discussion on these? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Who's the long-term subbing for?
Say that again?
Who are they long-term subbing for?
I'll they tell you.
The art teacher?
Our art teacher and our second, third, and some fourth special education teacher are both expecting babies in November, so they'll be covering maternity leaves for them.
And the only other thing I had.
Younger people have babies too. Just saying.
Sometimes 2 or 3.
The only other thing I have, I handed out an email request from Deb D'Alessandro that you have in front of you. And there were 2 requests. One was for Northwood School District to allow Northwood Transportation to register with municipal plates on the buses, and to temporarily eliminate Route 7 at a reduction of $42,348 until 2 more drivers are hired. Now, on that first request, she had brought up the question that that piece was taken out of the contract. I did some research. It's not in the present contract. I went back one contract to the 12-15 contract, and nothing was in there about registering under municipal plates. Tim had called the town offices and asked them if they had recalled anything on registering with municipal plates, and they felt that that wasn't something that had been done or could be done. So on the back of this sheet, I got in touch with our attorney and just posed the question about our contract with transportation. And Peter Phillips was the attorney that had originally written, I think it was the 2010, 2012 contract, and he couldn't recall it ever being in there. We can't find any evidence of it being in there. And Diane Garrow I asked her to write something up for us, and you can see on there that she is not recommending that be added to the contract because we don't drive the buses, we don't own the buses, and there really shouldn't be under municipal plates. So her recommendation is that we don't do that. And as far as temporarily eliminating Route 7, I'm not sure why you would adjust your contract at this point. You know, you've already had those discussions with Ms. Delisandro about the reduction of that rate until a point in time that she can fulfill enough drivers to get that bus route back. So that's the kind of the long and short of it.
So, I'm sorry, can you clarify what she's asking for the second part? Because we already did agree at a reduced rate to.
Right, and I believe that we also told her that we wanted her to report back to us.
Right.
And at this point in time, my understanding is that she hired a driver, and then she has one more driver going out. So it doesn't help her to fill the open position because
Right,
one
she
in,
doesn't
one
have
out,
staff.
she's still short.
Yeah.
So I think that this is just to put an addendum to the contract to say that basically that's okay for now, which if she's short drivers, I'm not sure why you need an addendum. You know, as long as we're not being charged for that particular bus for that period of time, you know, I believe she's making every effort to try to recruit bus drivers. It just hasn't worked out.
So the amount that we're getting, the discount we're getting, would it add up to this over the year?
Yes,
Until it's filled.
correct. Until that additional route is put back in place.
Yeah, because I think when we approved it, we did approve it for a limited time.
Yep.
So it might make
the end of
sense.
this month.
Right, right. So it makes sense to do something. I mean, you're saying we can continue that informally without putting it in the contract.
What I'm confused about is what number 2 down here is saying. Because it says number 2 specifies 2 drivers, because I need one to replace me on Route 6 and one for Route 7, enabling me to be back in the office and available as a spare in roadside emergencies.
So she didn't have that first driver. She lost the second driver. So the one that she's hiring is gonna be the one that's gonna be replacing her. So she's still out the one that she was supposed to hire at first.
Right, and if we hold her feet to the contract, means that she's gonna be out of the bus barn because somehow she needs to fill that bus position. So at the very least, I would encourage you to,
Continue what we're doing.
you know, put it in the minutes that it's acceptable that, you know, you're not gonna hold her feet to the fire for the contract, but make every effort to fill that position as soon as possible, whatever that means.
So
And we'll continue to get
I'm
a
almost
reduction.
thinking that we should talk about this in non-public, so I'll try to be careful. I feel very strongly that you do not want to do an addendum to the contract because that will then release her from that bus in the contract. Rather, I feel that we should be extending a month or two at a time, telling her clearly that we expect and want her to hire and fulfill her contract. The
With
minute we do the addendum, then as far as she's concerned, I believe, she will be perfectly legal to stop looking to hire somebody and just continue whatever, or not make as big of an effort. I think that, I have no problem with extending, giving her another 2-month extension to the end of the year, let's say, because I think that first extension was like now.
Yeah, it was the end of this
Yeah.
month.
Yes, and so if we wanted to extend it November and December, but at the same time making it very clear that we and the parents of our students would like that 7th bus, you know, it's in the you know, I don't wanna spend that money, it's there, we should have the bus, whatever that takes.
And I want to make sure that we are getting our reduced rate,
Yeah.
our daily reduced rate. Because we're not getting that bus.
Or somebody make a motion.
So I'll make a motion that we extend for 2 months the agreement that we've made with Deb D'Alessandro to give her time to find the bus driver for the 7th bus.
So to clarify, that would go through the end of the year,
Going through
December
the end of the year.
31st.
Yeah,
December 31st.
so December
Yep.
31st.
Yep.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
Regarding the first issue, I just want to speak a little to that. I was sitting teacher negotiations when Bob brought this up to me, and I told him I've never heard of such a thing. So I called Judy. Judy is Judy Peace, our town tax collector and
Town
clerk. And she knew all about it. She said that as far as she's concerned, the only way that Ms. D'Alessandro could legally put municipal plates on that bus is if our name, Northwood School, was on the titles. She has title to some of the buses, but some of them are lease. And I can't imagine a lease is gonna wanna put our name on their lease. In addition, if our name is on the titles, then are we taking on some of the liability responsibility?
Her name's on the title,
So
then we own the
I
buses.
really, and I appreciate
that's
what
why
she's
the-
trying to do, because
that's
this is
why
gonna
legal-
save her $5,500, but, you know, that.
I mean,
that-
why is that our problem?
Well, because she's trying to, she's a
Save
slick woman,
$5,500.
she's very smart.
Yeah. Just
So
trying to
she would
save
like to save the
She could sell us the
$5,500.
buses. and we could
But they
lease
are
them to
not
her.
municipal, they're
No.
not, they're a private
We're
entity.
responsible for all the upkeep. And that's specifically what the RSA says that the lawyer gave back to us, is that we have to own them
And not our buses.
or
Yep, so, well,
owned or driven by the school
doesn't
district,
sound like we're
so.
going to take any action on that.
Thank you. I will let her know. And that's all I have for my report.
Any questions to the superintendent?
How was your vacation?
Terrific.
Awesome.
Any more pertinent questions for the superintendent? New business, our full-day kindergarten discussion. We want to talk about whether or not we want to put that into the budget.
Yes.
I would like to see it in the budget if the budget was
Especially with that
reduced
number
enough.
that it came back to.
Right.
I'm much happier with that number than that 110, I think, or whatever it was, 100 and, I definitely think that we are gonna have to work on our budget, but I do
Yeah.
wanna see it in the budget.
I think we can get the budget down low enough, we're still reducing the budget with kindergarten in there.
That was my question, all right, so if we decide to put it in the budget, or put it in, warrant article, the warrant article would still show $100,000, right? You wouldn't be able to justify saying, oh, because we are saving money here, you would have to still put, in the warrant article, you would still have to put the full amount.
I'm not so sure about that.
You can't just put $67,000. Yeah, I'm not, that's why I'm asking.
If you did it in a warrant article, I would want to detail out how you got to the figure, but ultimately, it would be the $45,000, because you've got a cost savings already in your budget.
67.
67.
67.
With
But we're
drops
saving-
of war.
Ooh, pretty cheap figure.
45, we're saving 45.
All right.
Yeah. So,
It's late.
I'm just saying, is that what we can do? Because, I mean,
I think technically the warrant article raises money, right? And so we decide how much money we want to put in there for the warrant article. If it's approved, we get that money.
I mean, I would double
use it.
check that, but I think it just is the bottom line number that you need to raise.
that you want to approve.
I think you're right about that. Although I don't think everybody in town agrees with that. There's been a lot of discussion over the years, so people think you can't do it that way, so you'll get in arguments with people, I'm sure.
Can't do what?
That you have to put the whole cost in the warrant article. And
Oh,
you
I
can't,
see.
and you can't use the reduction. I'm not so sure I agree with that, but
I think the budget committee has given the opinion that they would like to see it as part of the budget as opposed to a warrant article.
That's not true.
I
The
think
budget
not.
committee chair has done that.
Okay.
Not one other person has made one statement.
Thank
So,
you for
the
clarifying.
budget
I've
committee
heard it-
chair
The
is
budget
not the
committee
budget
chair.
I've heard it from a few other members of the budget committee as
And the
well.
budget committee's budget was voted down, and we have a default budget from last year, if you'd pay attention. It
I
wasn't
did
our
pay
budget.
attention. I know it wasn't.
It was the budget committee's budget. So anyway, do what you want.
I mean,
I don't have any skin in the game, so.
Any other?
You mean you don't care where we do it, or you don't care if we do it? Is that what you're saying?
I am not voting for kindergarten, no matter what you do. So, that's it. I've thought about it long, and I've thought about it hard.
What was your bottom line
if-
budget? You wanted 11.5?
If you put it in the budget, God help you, just start figuring out how you're gonna spend of the default budget, because that's what you'll get. I think that is the biggest mistake you could make, but
What
that's,
if we're transparent about it?
Yep.
We're not trying to hide anything, we're telling everybody what we're doing.
I
There
said
you
it
go.
before, I think if you put it in the budget's gonna fail.
Yep,
I still
it will
believe
fail.
that, unless your budget is less than the default budget, then maybe it will have a
We have a
chance.
history of this town, and that's gonna come out over and over again, that any new positions and things like
So-
that are done as a
Can
warrant
we make a
article.
wager? If the budget passed, will you step down?
Not a chance.
Wow, that's
If
inappropriate.
if it doesn't pass, will you step down?
Absolutely. I'm willing to make that wager.
Well, not me. I'm here for the
Anything
duration.
else we want to talk about with kindergarten?
I just want to know whether I'm putting it in the budget or not.
Yes.
That's a simple question, huh, Bob? You
So your choices are to do another warrant article for 67,000 or try and put it in the budget.
Yep.
Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Those
Well,
are
and
the
I think
options.
too, the other question is, you know, we're saying 60, well, and I guess the 789, but whatever, we're saying 67, but, you know, bringing it back and talking to Jocelyn about, you know, that $10,950 for furniture and
We might be able,
equipment.
we might be able to shave it down a little bit more, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Would be nice.
And we might know a little bit more to the next meeting because of the tax rate, to know
Yeah, sure.
exactly how much,
Insurance rate, even.
no, the tax rate, right? Because we don't know the tax rate yet, that's for,
No,
um,
we'll,
we should
we
hopefully.
should know it next time.
Yeah, to know how much it's going to look, like what it would look like in a warrant article,
Yeah.
versus, you know, how much more it's gonna add to our bottom line budget.
Also, it's like, for me, it's if we can get the bottom line budget down low enough that we can absorb this.
Well, and I'm looking at this as trying to absorb these two, and I look at that full-time curriculum
Yeah,
director,
that
and
might be- that
that's
might
a
be tough to
huge
sell.
thing that I want, and that's just a huge amount of money, and I just don't see
I don't see
both
it
of them.
Right.
So I think it's a matter of,
You know, the interesting part with the curriculum, I mean, the kindergarten, is if it goes in your budget,
Right, if we have some savings somewhere else.
if it goes in your budget, you're pulling that bus out midday run. And then when I do the default budget, that bus stays in.
Yeah, that'll-
So, you know, you're gonna have some offsetting of costs there,
Right.
because the midday bus will need to stay in your default budget. Because if it fails, you're gonna need that run.
You're saying that you don't think that the curriculum director would pass because it costs more. Is that what you're saying?
well, and, I mean, we're only eliminating, in the budget that we have right now, the proposed budget, we're only eliminating one position, but we want to add a position for kindergarten, so we're not eliminating any positions. And we want to put in a full-time curriculum director.
So if you had to choose,
And
Which would you
that's the
choose?
thing, is, what is
you
going
can't
to.
do both. Putting them both on the ballot, they're both
What
gonna
is going
fail.
to
I mean,
do
if
the
you had to
most for
choose
the,
one.
the best for the most kids, to me, would be the curriculum director.
As far as I'm concerned, you just asked the smartest question I've heard you ask, and you came up with the smartest answer I've heard you ask.
I am
You
aiming
answered.
to please you,
I just-
Tim.
I think you just hit the nail on the head, is we have to figure out what's the best for the students, and you just did that. So, anyway, that's my opinion.
It's tough, because I think that they're both what's best for every student in the long run.
And I totally agree with you, because if we're gonna go with a strategic plan, our strategic plan would have a curriculum director. We need one.
We do.
So.
We
what-
need a full-time curriculum director.
She put in the total cost for the curriculum director as 111,000 change. That's not the full amount of the increase though, because we're working with the 2/5 curriculum director right now.
No,
No, it's not in our budget.
No,
'cause
it's
I know it's not in our budget, but, okay, but
it's unbudgeted, so that
Yeah.
would be the full
it'll be
increase.
the full increase in the budget. But in the budget, the proposed budget, the 2/5 is in there.
No.
Oh, you're putting more, that's right.
If we could get the full-time
Yeah.
curriculum director in the budget, I would definitely be more in favor of that than full-time kindergarten in the budget.
If what?
Did I just hear a unanimous agreement around the table?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what he said, so.
It sounded like people were more in favor of putting the curriculum director in the budget than trying to put full-time kindergarten in. We seem to think that that's a better bang for our buck. If we,
But I
I'm not in
don't
full
want
agreement.
to.
you're not in full agreement? It sounded like we
No,
had.
no, but what I'm saying is,
You're
what I'm
convincing me.
saying
We're getting close.
is,
We're getting close.
I would rather put the full-time.
Interesting.
I would rather put the full-time curriculum director in the budget. I'm not saying let's not do anything with kindergarten. Let's put it on a warrant article if we're going to do something with it that way.
So, the other thing to consider is,
I like the numbers. I want to see numbers.
the other
Well,
thing to
and
consider
that's
is
why
when you
I'm
put
saying the
something on a
tax
warrant
rate.
article, if the warrant article gets voted down, right? And we end up having the money because
Can't do it.
students run out of, a bunch of high school students maybe move out of town or something like that, right? And we have extra money. We wouldn't be able to implement kindergarten now because of the no means no.
Correct.
Where if it's in the budget, even if it's a default, we're on default budget, and something like that happens and there's extra savings, then we could implement that.
Yeah.
In both cases, actually,
So
right?
basically what we're saying to these guys is go find $500,000, to take out of the budget that you just proposed to us. And then you can take your 180 here, but you can't touch, however much Cole Brown is, you can't touch that much, and you can't touch the special ed amount because that's this amount. So you can only touch what's in the regular ed, that's
Yes.
the hard part.
That's why we pay them the money.
Awesome.
Had vacation.
So I'm back to, do you want me to put the full-day K and/or the curriculum director in the budget or not?
Once you do it without increasing the budget. That's what I'd like to see.
Can you put the curriculum director into the budget without increasing the budget?
If that's the
Increase the
directive
bottom
we're
line.
giving him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would like to see you give that a try.
I'd like to see them both.
I like the sound of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's gonna work,
Right,
but
right, it may not work. I mean, we may be asking for the impossible, in which case he comes back and tells us that. Right, that
Well,
can't
we
do
already
it.
know we can take some out
So
of
if we can get
technology.
both of those positions in the budget and not raise the budget, you're happy with that?
I know,
I think you're
that's the
pushing
thing,
your
that's
luck.
I'm just, the town is not going to pass this budget.
Right.
unless
I think
it's,
we need to
like I said,
we
if
need
it's,
to
unless
reduce-
it's less.
Right, it needs to be less, too.
Yeah, I mean, the town is not going to pass.
I just need to know
Right.
what you want to look at the budget next time it comes back. Do you want it in or do you want it out?
Put it in, we'll look at it.
Which one?
I would put the curriculum director in.
Or both?
Put them both in. We
I
can
would-
take them back out. I mean, we're just looking at the budget. If we get
Yeah,
them both
I mean,
in and
if
get it
you
down.
do
low.
Let's look at it. I want to see numbers. I want to see where you play with your numbers.
I mean, it's gonna be harder to fit them both in, so it'll be.
I don't think there's any way they're both gonna go in.
Well, I can get them in. You're just not going to like the number.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Any other comments on this, or should we move on? It's been a long night.
Move on.
Go on. Bree, would you like to take this next recycling proposal?
Yes, it will take a minute and a half, I promise. Two things sent from your town administrator. I again want to thank the school for getting their tax documents in early. It sped the process up a great deal this year. Thank you very much. That's one. The other one, to the administration, the town's recycling committee would like to do some outreach and education in the 5th grade class. They want to do a presentation to your 5th graders on the importance of recycling and how they can help recycling. If you are okay with that, the chair of the recycling committee, Jim Valancourt, would like to contact you to set something up. They're thinking just a presentation, probably less than an hour for your 5th graders, so. With your approval, I will tell them it's okay. If not, let me know.
I'm fine with it, I just would want to check with my teacher, my fifth grade teachers first and make sure it worked for them,
Makes sense.
so I can let you know.
Yep. Well, you can let Joe know, since
Okay.
it was his initiative.
All right, I will let Joe know.
Thank you.
You need approval, do we need approval on these, or you're good?
I'm good, and if
Okay.
she's gonna check with her teachers, she can contact Joe and let him know.
Okay. Great. Subcommittee reports, we heard from the budget committee, unless there's anything else you want to talk about for that? No.
Marjorie's gonna answer their questions and have them for the next meeting, we're all set.
All right, the tech committee we did meet, I was finally there. We worked on our statement of purpose, and the status of, one of the status of the tech plan, which is apparently gonna be used potentially as a model or an example for the state, so good for Steve for doing that. People at the state really liked it.
Great. Kudos.
And there's a few initiatives where they're trying to use maybe Twitter to do some collaborative stuff online, which I don't really understand completely, but it's because I don't really use Twitter that much, surprisingly.
Don't you work for Twitter?
I do.
I think work for somebody else.
So, any other committees meeting in the meantime?
Well, we had clubs
Facilities?
committee, but
Clubs committee, we heard from athletics, we haven't talked about policy. You guys are just trying to fit it in where you can. Okay, guess that's it, unless there's anybody has anything. Old business, strategic planning decision. I hope you all had time to think about those presentations from last week. We'd like to have some discussion now about maybe choosing which vendor or which consultant we'd like to go with. Let me find this.
So, I hate it when I agree with Tim, but I'm going to sort of agree with Tim somewhat, I think, again. I'm wondering if we should delay this decision a little bit longer. We're in November of our budget, and I know that it's looking good right now, but there are, things that could happen down the road. I'm just wondering if we should delay this decision on how much, we're spending, because we have spent quite a bit, and just delay this decision until maybe after the first of the year, after we've gotten through the budget season and we have a little bit
Are you saying
better.
just for time reasons, or for?
No, I'm saying for budget reasons, for money, yeah.
Coming up to $30,000.
I'm saying for budget reasons to know at least a little bit better, have a little bit better of a handle on our budget.
What do you anticipate happening?
I don't anticipate anything happening, I hope
I
not,
just
but I
didn't know
mean,
if you'd heard something, or.
we could have an oil leak, we could have, the roof collapse, and I know we have all these,
You could have a need for an extra para.
right, which we do.
Which we do because of a child.
We could have
moving in.
15 more
That's a
students
big
move into
expense right
Co-Brown.
there. Figure out what a para costs you with benefits, et cetera, that's not.
And it's something that we could, I think money best used if we do have money at the end of the year.
And I do want to do this, because I think it's a great thing. I just wonder if this is the right time, and I think we just need to wait until, I think we've done some spending here at the beginning of the year, that I think we just need to back off and just maybe say, hey, let's, we just hired the new, part-time curriculum director and, things like that. I just think we need to put the brakes on a little bit on the spending, and that's just me.
I'm just worried about if we don't do it, if we don't get the wheels moving, the wheels stop, and we're gonna not move forward with it. They found the money in the budget for it, unless there's some reason for us to think that money is going away. And maybe
No,
we
but
should talk
that
to
was
Scott about
before
that,
we
and
also
maybe-
had, we just had to take on another para, which we haven't hired, or did we just hire that one tonight, or? No. No, we still have another one that we have to hire, and that was before, that,
Right.
that happened
that's the-
after. And who knows what else is coming.
Well, just an example, those Co-Brown students, were a couple $100,000 of unbudgeted funds there as well. So I don't anticipate anything. Your financials look good right now, but we're also sitting in October. I agree. I think it's a reasonable thing to do to put it on hold for a little bit. I mean, I don't think we can wait until, if you're gonna use this year's funds, you shouldn't be waiting any longer than, first of the year to get this going and kick it off. The only thing I would say that if you choose to put it on hold for a little while, I think it would be good to make the decision as to which vendor you're gonna use.
Right.
And then I can get in touch with them and just let them know what we're talking about.
Well, the other thing too is that we don't pay it at all up front, right? Isn't it, as we go, we're paying in installments?
I would
imagine,
assume
and-
there's a portion up front and then pay in the middle and then pay at the end when it's all done.
Once you make an agreement, you have to pay it.
Well, we can
Right.
make, depends on what kind of agreement we make, right?
So I mean, I agree, I think we should make a decision tonight as to who, if we wanna have a who, and then I think that, we should inform them that we're gonna make a final decision to start the first meeting in January.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Does have any strong opinions on who? Because think
I
it was
definitely have a strong.
Human
opinion.
dynamics.
Ew.
Second one.
Second one.
Yeah, the
Second
second
one.
one. He just
Think
had
strategy,
more.
was it?
Thanks
Yeah.
to-
I think I'm the only one that liked the first one better.
No, I like the first one better too.
Really?
Yeah.
I did. I like the first one a lot better. I think that other guy had a lot to say about being in the schools, but I think there was a lot more substance in the first one. He talked a lot about issues that we understand, but as far as what he was gonna do,
Yeah.
I have no idea.
The first one.
He
they-
didn't say the
they-
first one. They
they've
were
been
very
in
clear,
schools
very
forever.
concise. They were,
They've been at Exeter Phillips Academy was the only school that they were at. and
They went to all-day kindergarten.
Yes, they did. They're super smart.
I did talk to somebody in the field that I happened to run into socially that knew the people from the human dynamics, and she thought they were great, but then again, they were working on big schools.
I
and
don't
stuff.
know, I just think they're,
like I said, listening to what they said they were gonna do, I understood what their plan was. I understood how they were gonna do it when the second guy talked. I agreed with a lot of the things that he said, but I have no idea what he was gonna do for us. And as far as, if I have to choose, I'm gonna choose the one that I understand what his plan is. So that's my opinion.
So, was the first one human dynamics? Was that the,
Yeah, human dynamics was the man and the lady, and the think strategy was the lone gentleman.
all right, so let's just cut to the chase then. Who wants to go with think strategy? Raise your hand.
That was the lone gentleman.
Lone gentleman, one. 1, 2, 3. Wow. All right, please get in touch with them.
I will give him a call.
$15,000 cheaper, I guess. I just hope you get your money's worth with what
I don't know,
you're
I
choosing.
think, I think we will, because
too.
I think that he was, I had written a note too, I think it was to Shane, saying how he was very into his subject matter, and he was just very excited about it, and
You're just snooty, so you got along with the snooty people
You
there.
think they were snooty?
Okay, we're moving on.
They were clear.
We have district goals on here, but we will be doing that next week, so I'm gonna.
Like
pass
rambling
by.
people who just never know when to shut up.
No,
Oh, wow, I'm so
he
surprised.
He said he understood our problem because of losing students in smaller schools, and that's what sold me on them. Because that's our big problem.
well, that's what all of the schools are
Yes,
going through,
it's a
even
big
the
problem,
schools
yes.
in the area where he's
Yep.
coming from, the Lebanon area, it's
Yep.
huge,
And I think-
everywhere.
There's
Every
nothing on our
company
parking
that-
lot right now.
they work with is.
Moving on.
On this one.
Keep going.
They could do that for us.
Board timeline,
You're just like a freight train. I love
budget
it.
preparation, which we're in the middle of doing, so I think we're done with that.
we're about done. We already have this.
Any future agenda items? Right now, we have the athletic policy as soon as possible. Hopefully, if the policy committee can get to it before our next meeting, that'd be
We didn't
great.
talk district goals. Were we doing, we punting that for a
No,
while?
district goals is next
Thursday.
Next Thursday.
Meeting.
We're having a special meeting next
Oh,
Thursday.
yeah, I forgot about that.
We'll be doing that.
I tried to do it last
Session.
Thursday, and she wouldn't let me.
Maybe a
I was
heart
ready
attack.
to leave the teacher negotiations and come right here.
We can do a discussion on
All by
the
myself.
law of the minutes, to make sure that we're up to date with that.
Yep, I got that down too.
Great, okay. Anything else anybody else want on the agenda for 2 weeks from now?
No, let's have a short one,
So by next,
Sounds good.
for once.
Yep,
so next, you will have those numbers for next meeting for the curriculum director and the kindergarten being the sub budget.
yep. Okay, our next meeting is a week from now, a week from today, here. We're gonna have a work session on district goals. It's not in our packet, I don't think, but, on October 24th, there's a joint board meeting at the SAU office, 6:15. And our next regular board meeting is November 3rd, and then November 17th. In the midst of that, November 16th, the day before, there's a joint board meeting at Co-Brown, with the Co-Brown board. Any closing public comment?
Hi, I'm Amy Hanneman. I'm mom of a first grader.
Stand at the microphone, please.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Turn it on.
It's even.
Oh, yeah, it is on, it's on,
It's
sorry.
even my height. It's never my height. A first grader and a or preschooler, excuse me. So, because I have a preschooler, he's 3. Full day kindergarten is something we've been trying to get past. We tried to get it before my son went into kindergarten, who's now in first. Obviously, it didn't go anywhere. We're still trying. There's many parents who really want full day kindergarten. Sorry. So I really feel like if you put it in another warrant article, it's really not going to go anywhere. It's just, it's going to go up there. Everybody's going to get mad about it. Somebody else is going to buy signs and put them up and say vote against it. When I go and hand make my 4 signs and put them out on the street and try to get it passed, if you can afford to put it in the budget, that would be wonderful. I feel like people will just vote it down and it'll get slaughtered again. You know, you're the school board. I really feel like, you know, we elect you to make these decisions, and I feel like it's the right thing for the kids. Now for a few budget comments. Did the curriculum director include benefits and retirement in that $70,000? Because
No, it's 111,000.
that would be the full, okay,
That's
so
the package.
I only caught the 70 because Ms. Boudreau walked out and said they didn't include that. So it'd be
385.60.
Okay. And then also the $10,000 you have in there for like supplies or whatever for kindergarten. She said that they have pretty much everything that they would need. It's just in storage. Like they have like little kitchens, they have tables, chairs, all sorts of things. She said you'd have to buy a little bit, but there's no way you'd have to spend $10,000 on that. So I'd just like to point that out. They couldn't stay. They wanted me to pass along that information. I'm sorry, I'm beat. It's so late. Thank you guys for doing this every week. I don't know how you do it.
We're usually not this late. Thank you.
We've been later, though.
We have been later. Ms. Glennon.
Hi, I'm Shirley Glennon. I know you guys have heard me talk about the facts of why I support kindergarten so much in the past, as far as the studies that show how it helps kids level up and even out on their proficiency across the table. I hear a lot of talk about math proficiency being a problem, and I really think that just looking at tutoring and after-school programs is a huge Band-Aid when we can really be progressive and give these kids that full day of kindergarten so that they have the time in the day to get the social and emotional education that has just been completely taken out of kindergarten at this point to try to catch up academically, because our expectations for them at first grade are much higher than what they were when traditionally schools had half-day kindergarten. Almost at least 2/3 of the state now have full-day kindergarten, and they're encompassing this, and their students are getting proficient in math and ready for first grade level math because they have that time in the classroom to spend with the kids. It's been shown that it pays for itself through this. So if we're talking about issues of math proficiency, let's be proactive. Let's give these kids the right start. I know we're talking about how many kids can be benefited, whether it's through the curriculum director or through kindergarten. I think the curriculum director is a great thing, but if we're looking over $100,000, and we're looking at a bit less than that now for a kindergarten thing, that's going to, across the board, level it out and give these kids a great step in the door where they're not then struggling also emotionally with the stress. I mean, kids who are behind, they know they're behind. They're dealing with the emotions of that, and it's affecting more than just their school day and their success. It's affecting their confidence. Let's give them the opportunity for school to be a good thing off the bat, instead of just trying to put a Band-Aid on things through tutoring and picking things up at the end, because why aren't these kids getting it? Well, maybe it's because they're not getting the time in the classroom they need from the beginning. And that's all I want to say. And thank you for being here till 10 o'clock tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Brandon Albert, I wasn't going to speak, but I wanted to address a couple of points regarding all-day kindergarten. The nature of what I do for work, I could speak to, and I know clearly you can see the cost of special education services. The best thing you could do for a kid is early intervention in the half-day kindergarten. Doesn't present enough time for that without taking them out of the instruction time. you spoke to the cost of one kid who is not even out of district, but just in another public school, which is probably a cost-saving measure, a school that has programming that Northwood School likely doesn't. Probably the work of Mr. Runig looking for strategic ways to save money, but meet the needs of the students. The cost saving now, if you have the time for early intervention for students at a critical age of development, if you can keep one kid from going out of district, it pays for itself.
Thank you. Tiffany, no? Misty? No? Any board members like to take this opportunity to talk? Good, no. Closing public comment is done. Do we have a need for a non-public session at the end?
No.
No, we don't. Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll grab the tags for you.